Right, so
I've returned. Sorry, there was a podcast going on in the background.
Nice.
Podcast within a podcast.
Oh, man. My brain can't handle that right now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dodgeball podcast. In this episode and final part of the recap, I was able to pull aside for members of various divisions to discuss some of the more in-depth aspects of the actual event, of how the actual tournament played out. Since there was so much to cover, we're just going to go ahead and dive right into these segments. Alrighty, so in this segment, I've got Bill Fischer and Lucas Boyle to help me discuss what they saw in the Open finals matches. Guys, thank you so much for hopping on. One of the main reasons why I reached out to you guys specifically was because I saw you guys were at the booth commentating on the stream. So, first of all, how starting with you, Lucas, how did you guys get into that? Like, did you just volunteer, or did they like you from your UDC? Because I feel like you've done this a few times already.
Yeah, our first time doing this was last year at Elite Nationals in Boston. We played in all the divisions except for Pinch. So when we finally got around to the Pinch division, Bill and I kind of wandered up to the broadcast booth and we were like, this has always been a dream of ours. Let's give it a shot. And we sat down and our friends kind of came up and were like cheering us on. And then they went away and then they came back and we asked them, like, how long have we been up here? And they were like, 3 hours. So, like, we had a blast up there. Time just flew by. It was fun just kind of, like, reacting to what was happening on the court and just kind of, like, verbalizing it. And since then, we've had a couple opportunities to do it. We've done it at UDC this year in Chicago. And then this was our third time doing it here at Elite Nationals in Minneapolis.
Awesome. And, Bill, well, first of all, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for hopping on, man. Do you want to just give like a quick introduction? No offense to you, Lucas, but I think people know pretty well who you are. So, Bill, just give us your team names, just a real quick background if you don't mind.
Yeah, my name is Bill Fischer. I play on Fortune. Last year I played on Roybots. I've been playing Dodgeball for about 3.5 years now, like 3 years competitively, and yeah, commentating for about a year. First time I commentated was the Seattle Dodgeball Classic, where I learned I actually had to say something and I couldn't just watch the game. My commentary has gotten a lot better since that first one.
I was going to ask if the Seattle Classic had anything to do with your commentating, because that's one of the things I remember that is one of the things that distinguishes the Seattle Classic from all the other tournaments out there was hilarious commentators. How long have you been doing that? Just real quick segue.
I think we've had commentators, I don't know, for the last 4 years. We actually didn't have any this year, but we were planning on it and we just started running out of time, so we had to cut that. But yeah, Bill and Missy have been a couple dodgeballers in Seattle who have stepped up to do the commentating. And before that, the original host of the event, Matt Brennan, was an artist and entertainer. And so he had a lot of buddies who did like semi-pro wrestling in Seattle, and so his friends actually did the announcing for the semi-pro wrestling circuit. So they came out. It was really fun. We brought them to like a pickup night of dodgeball just to explain the rules, and then just give them a little bit of a foundation, and then let them do their thing when it came to like the big tournament. And those guys were awesome. They were they really dramatized what was happening on the court, and would just, even if it was just a pretty mundane out, it would just, find a way to kind of hype it up and make it sound awesome.
Yeah, I remember just hearing a lot of funny, hilarious comments when all I do was just like hit somebody out when I was playing with Damnation back in, I think, 2013. I was like, hey, that's cool. Like, this is really fun. Whatever they just said, that was hilarious. But well, very cool. Well, let's just go ahead and I guess dive right in. Like I said, thank you guys for hopping on. I'm just going to flat out admit I didn't get to absorb as much of the playing other than what I played, with my team as I had wanted. Don't want to get too into it, but I was a little sidetracked, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. But so I'm definitely going to lean on you guys to kind of help me break down what happened. So I guess what we can do is we can start from like the first game you guys saw, if you can remember. About when did you guys hop on that table, and what match did you see or start with?
I think the first match that we started broadcasting was Titan versus Space Cadets.
Perfect.
And that was kind of a surprise match because I think the dodgeball community in general was stunned by Space Cadets that weekend, and so it was awesome to be able to kind of like see them in their glory or at their peak, and getting to go against Titan, who features some of the biggest names in the sport. You know, I think that's one of the reasons we all come to nationals, is that we want to like test ourselves against the best in the game. And in this case, we were like, all right, Space Cadets is like the Cinderella story. Let's see how they go against, you know, one of the big names in the sport in Titan and Andrew Ketchum and the gang. Bill, what did you think about that one?
That game, I think, to me showed that Titan like did their research on Space Cadets. I think after seeing like who Space Cadets went through, I think they went through Team Awesome, they went through us on Fortune, they went through Anarchy, and then I forget who they lost to, but they went down and then faced Titan at that point, I guess. And Titan just like in that match looked like they understood Space Cadets and where they were getting their advantage from.
Yeah, they had a pretty awesome track. So I made the comment in I think maybe to Colin, or at least with Mark, where we played them in round robin and we 2-0'd them, and you know, again, no offense, Colin, but they look like just a new team that wasn't really sure what they were in for. And when I interviewed Colin after I think they just beat Notorious, they said that they had like a good, I don't want to say come to Jesus moment, but that's essentially what they did. They thought about what was working and what wasn't, and by Saturday they were a brand new team, and so they beat Legacy, they beat Team Awesome, as you said, Bill, they took out you guys, and then they beat Anarchy, as I said. They lost at Doom, so Doom is what brought them to that match against Titan, and you said Titan had already kind of caught on to them. Was there anything specific that you saw that kind of gave that away?
Yeah, game one in the match, like immediate, like, so I think against Fortunes, Zach Grady did like a really good job of like putting pressure, and getting some big outs against like us, for instance. And Titan coming out of the gate, did a double team, like onto Zach, like they had little 4, I think, and they double teamed Zach. And like, you don't normally start off with a double team on a corner. And they immediately took him out. Like, it was, you know, they were aware of what they were doing.
It was like very deliberate, like, we have to get this guy.
Yeah. And just from playing and knowing how we play, and what works, like it seems so different, that it seemed very deliberate. Yeah.
Huh. Kudos to Titan for doing their homework like the day of, because just watching Space Cadets go through all those teams was pretty awesome, and I caught the tail end just right before they got to you guys. So, Lucas, do you have any comments on that match that you can remember?
Not on that match specifically, but we, you know, after getting knocked out or bumped into the losers bracket by Space Cadets, we went back and watched our match against them and kind of like looked at what they were doing and, you know, how were they being successful. And it was kind of awesome to watch. A lot of elite teams do like kind of a huddle approach and like a little more like regimented style of dodgeball right now in the competitive ranks.
Right.
And we still haven't like broke it down completely, but like one thing that set them apart is when they would counter, the player who was countering would just get a full head of steam and would get like a sprinting head start into their throw. And there was one game, actually, I think it was game 2. We were up 1-0 in the match. And in game 2, we had like a 4-2 player lead. And we paused the game and we looked around the room. We're like, how did we lose this match? How did we lose this? And there was this situation where like with 2 players, I think Matt Levine came rushing up on a counter, put himself, you know, way ahead of his teammate, exposed, and makes a throw, and is retreating. And as he's retreating, his team has 2 balls, and I think it was Zach Grady who comes running in with one of the two balls and takes the shot and makes a big out. And that's a throw that you would not see other teams making with two balls and down players. But it's hard. It was just aggressive and surprising and effective. And it was apparently exactly what was needed to kind of like throw off all of these teams that are used to elite style dodgeball. And I'm wondering if that came from like UDC background or just like having like almost an indie lineup. I know that they had a lot of new players for this tournament, but
Right.
you know, it kind of opened my eyes to some of the unexplored strategies that could be used here in elite going forward.
That's why you mentioned like they committed plays that you wouldn't be expecting in a structured, conventional elite setting. And it reminds me of, I'm going to butcher this a little bit, but I hope it's not too far off, but it reminds me of this quote that this German general said about the American forces. Like, these guys are so frustrating because we have their doctrine and we have like their tactics and how they're supposed to fight. But when we fight them, they don't do that. So we don't know what to expect, and they keep us on our heels, and they end up winning battle after battle. And I wonder if the Space Cadets was kind of like that, where they just did things that you just weren't expecting, and instead of, getting rid of that two ball when they had four guys left, because if they missed, I'm sure that would have cost them, but they connected, so they had the skill to make sure that these gambles were paying off. But I'm really excited to kind of get to know Colin a little bit more and find out where they came from and try to understand, hey, what did you guys bring to the table? And that's one of the coolest things about Nationals, is just seeing these different styles and regions bringing new strategies to the game. I wanted to point out real quick, I don't know if you guys had a chance to watch any of the Outsiders games, because I feel like they had a pretty solid run too, just coming up all the way through losers brackets. Again, Titan kind of put them down too, but did you guys catch any of their games by any chance? No?
Not that I'm aware of. No, we were playing pretty late into the bracket, and then we started with, like, Space Kids was like one of the first matches I actually got to watch after that.
Gotcha. Very cool. I'll have to pull up some streams and just kind of watch for myself.
Steve, let's just look at who Outsiders played real quick and give them some props.
Yeah, for sure. Pull up the bracket here. So where did they start? So they seeded. I can't read that. They seeded
Looks like 11th.
Yeah, I think they seeded pretty high though. So they start off against.
Looks like Rogue.
Rogue. Yeah, they took Rogue. They took down Brick Squad. Lost to Doom.
2-1.
2-1. So they took one off Doom, which is pretty always an accomplishment of itself. And then down
They
to
knocked off Kraken.
Yep.
And then they lost to Titan.
But they took one. Did they take one of Titan?
Yeah, it looks like they did. And you know who else lost to Titan and Doom? Space Cadets.
Right. So that's kind of why I brought them up, specifically because it looks like, we had these two teams that are from different regions giving what I would hope is the West a run for their money and doing well. But then Titan's like, no, okay, we're done with you guys now. We're gonna move on. But I like that Outsiders took one off of them. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it was. I think Mark mentioned this in his pod, but I think it was a big tournament for Outsiders. Just like representing the South and showing everybody the kind of ability and talent that is in the South.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. So let's move on to the next match that you guys were able to witness. And do you recall which one that was?
Yeah, the next one was Titan versus Doom, and this was I think the loser bracket final. Is that right, Bill?
This should be the loser bracket final, yes.
Yep.
And that was a question that we kept asking ourselves on the broadcast. One of the things that you can't tell from the broadcast is that you have no information when you're sitting up there. You can't get to the bracket. So we were like pleading with people off camera to like take a photo of the bracket and like run it over to us.
Oh, man.
Because we were just sitting there and we're like doing our best to kind of create content and information that was valuable. But this was Doom Titan, loser bracket final. I think I've got a couple thoughts, but I noticed that in both of the first games, Ryan Morris was the first out for Titan.
Yeah.
And he's definitely one of their when they win, I bet there's a strong correlation between when they win and when Ryan's on the court. Ryan just does such a good job holding down opposing corners and controlling the line for Titan. I think Ketchum was a little trigger happy in that match. In game 3, they had a 4-3 advantage, and it was Ketchum, Davey, Xander, and Brett. And it was versus Nate, Cole, and Frank. And Titan kept countering into Doom, which allowed Doom to take extra shots. I think Titan got an edge in like most of the games in that match, but I think it's important when you get an edge to like savor that and like exploit it. And one of the ways to do that is by maintaining ball control and just getting extra possessions out of the ball control. And when you counter every time, you're letting your opponent off the hook, and you're also giving them extra like bites at the apple. Bill, what did you think? I've got some more notes on that, but I wanted to let you jump in.
Yeah, so on both your points, one, the first throw on Ryan Morris was from Pine in the middle on a Ryan Morris who was already down, ready to block, like on a barnacle of a corner, someone that just lives in that corner. And that was their first shot. Again, like an unorthodox start to the game. Like Doom knew that they had to take out Ryan to, that's their win percentage right there. And then what was the other thing? This seemed like a different Ketchum than what we saw at UDC. Especially like the Ketchum that, came back 4-against-1 versus Ducks, where he just lived and he held the ball and he survived. This was very like counter happy Ketchum. And his counter into Frank and Cole is what opened him up and let that double team of, 2 elite veterans, just hit him in the chest, hit him high, hit him low, and get that out on him. And then my other big note.
Let me jump in there. There's like I think it was in game 2 that Ketchum makes it to the later half of the game and has a ball and is countering into the double. And I think one of the things he's been able to like have a lot of success with in this tournament and in others is, especially in rubber 8.5, where it's a more catchable ball, is throwing into that double team, hoping to kind of like break it up either by getting one of the outs or staggering the synchronization and then making a catch out of that. And I wonder on these exchanges, Ketchum did get Vince Marchbanks early in the game 2 on a counter like that, and I think Vince ended up dropping his blocker. So I think maybe like with that success, he was trying to ride that success, but it could be something where Cole and Frank have played against Andrew enough times that they know not to go for that body shot when they do get that throw off. And so I think they survived Andrew's counter, and then they took some off-body shots and either just clipped a little bit of him or caught a little bit of his hand when he was reaching for a catch. But it seemed like they were ready for that, and they made it count. But I think this match really comes down to game 3. Game 3 was incredible. If you haven't watched it, go back to the stream, watch this. On the very first possession of game 3, Nate pulls a surprise throw on the first possession. Usually Doom is just going to have Payan solo on his own. It worked in the first game. But in this game, Nate throws solo. He goes for Xander, who's the second player in, and Xander catches it. So Nate is out instantly.
Wow.
On the next play, Titan runs a double team and takes out Payan. So two plays into the game, Nate is off the court, Payan is off the court. Titan is up 6-4. You've got a huge lead. But here's where it breaks open. On the double team that takes out Payan, Vince cross-courts the double team and hits Xander. Ketchum is guarding Vince, or is marked up against Vince as the opposing corner. So Ketchum is obligated to make that throw. So in rhythm, Ketchum makes this throw. He unloads. Vince does a jump dodge. The ball hits Vince in the leg, and it looks like Vince was like playing hacky sack because Vince just taps it over almost in like a controlled manner to Ish, who lays out and makes the catch.
Oh my God.
And this all happens kind of like during that double team. So you go from this scenario where Nate is out, Pyan is out, you've got a huge lead in game 3 of the the loser's bracket final, to a situation where Nate is coming back on a catch, Ketchum is out, Vince is alive, Ish makes the catch, and now it's the score is actually 5-4 for Doom because Xander goes out. So like in that little play, the entire match essentially swung. Like had Ketchum made the out instead of a deflected catch, you've got Titan in full control with Nate, Pyan, and Vince off the court. And instead, Ketchum is out, Nate's back, Vince is alive, and Doom's got a 5-4 advantage. It was pretty crazy.
Wow, that...
At one point, Vince was dead in the air, and Ish's heads-up catch is literally what turned that game around.
So
it was absolutely insane.
That's incredible. So playing with Ketchum and playing with this guy Justin Acton, like the pop-up catches are the most frustrating banes of our existence, I feel. And like I could literally think about what's going on in Ketchum's mind when he takes that shot, because you just see, the two most, no offense to the rest of Doom, but like the two most like influential offensive players out. You have to take that shot on Vince, and if he had hit him, it would have probably won the game. But like I could just see that ball pop up and just like that sinking feel, like you've got to be freaking kidding me. But at the same time, huge props to Ish for having the heads up, and Doom in general, because pop-ups happen all the time. It's those teams that like know to look up for them and make a play off those, that I feel lets you capitalize on those lucky opportunities. So Ish having the heads up, catching that pop-up, making that huge play doesn't surprise me at all. Like I wouldn't even chalk that up to luck. I chalk that up to skill, really.
Yeah, I don't know why. It seems like Ish makes just the biggest plays in like the biggest moments, throughout the last, 5 years of competitive dodgeball. It seems like, I don't know, like the Ish just makes like an exorbitant amount of clutch plays, and he just got that clutch factor. He's got poise in pressure situations, and he's always there for his teammates. So.
He's got that awareness too. Like he's looking for those pop-ups. I mean, sometimes they I'm sure they happen more often than you would think. It's not always against like your team when that happens, but that guy's got some amazing court awareness.
I just going back to that crucial play in game 3 that just broke everything open. I think in real time we were like, oh, who threw that? It was Ketchum. Okay, he was trying to do too much there. He just pressed his luck and he threw the catch. And I think that is kind of like a knock on Ketchum, is that he'll press his luck sometimes. But going back and watching the video, I'm in like total agreement with his decision making there. Vince cross courts the double team and exposes himself, and Andrew is like obligated in that situation to take the shot. And it was just so unlucky for Titan and very fortunate for Doom that the ball goes into Vince's legs and just kind of, pops out in a spot that Ish could make a catch on. And it's just heartbreaking that games turn on luck. But, I guess some people say the harder you work, the luckier you get. And in that case, Doom is one of the hardest working teams in dodgeball, so they came out there on top.
Yeah, it was definitely luck that the ball went where it did, but it was all skill that Ish was watching that and was heads up and got that catch. Like, you don't get that without the skill of being that heads up.
Yeah, and we usually pop up. It's like hesitation. It's like, should I go for it? I'm going to get gunned down. It's just, I'm sure he just said, "F it. This is mine. Like my team needs this more than anything right now." Man, I agree. Like it's even myself in that situation, I'd probably go for Vince if I had Ketchum's throwing power. There's no way I would definitely take that shot. So like, and
the thing is that like Vince makes so many like of those body catches in that situation where he's countered, he feels the heat, he jumps, and he'll catch it on the body every time. So Ketchum does what you should do and goes low, like hits him in the ankle kind of calf region. Just the only difference was Vince just kind of had his hacky sack skills on display and just taps it over to Ish. It was nuts.
That's rough.
Handball, dodgeball, and hacky sack. Vince's 3 big sports.
Man.
So anyways, I mean, for a match to go back and forth and then to be decided in the third game like that was pretty incredible. But I do want to give credit and praise to Frank and Cole, who found themselves late in almost all of the games. And I think it was in game 2 that I might be misspeaking there, but I think there was a lot of just awesome group throws that involved Frank. And, he's not on Doom all the time, but he really shined in this match here in the semifinals.
Yeah, so I really wasn't trying to dismiss Cole or Frank by any means. In fact, I think you take away the offensive aspect of Doom, but then you have the solid core of guys that will wait it out, wait for those opportunities, wear the team down. I mean, they're pretty solid when it comes to that, and I feel like their role is just as integral as Vince Pine and Nate. So definitely wasn't trying to dismiss them by any means.
Oh no, I don't think you were. I think that I think Doom suffers from kind of the Golden State Warriors syndrome, where when Durant went to the Warriors, everyone's well, good, Steph Curry, kiss goodbye your MVPs, and it's just because there's so much star power that the shine has to be split among them. And I think you see that even with all-star voting. Vince is not being voted as an all-star this year, and the only reason is because Doom is so successful and there's voter fatigue, and people are just they have to decide who to vote for. And we all know that Vince is an all-star, but I think the same thing goes for some of their quote unquote support players Frank and Cole and Ish and Terry, guys who aren't the first people that you're scouting, but on any other team, those guys are going to be the all-star.
Definitely. Yeah, they're just a solid team through and through. But let's go ahead and move on, because we'll have a chance to talk about them still with Rise. So I imagine that was the next game, right? That just moved on to the finals.
Yeah, so the final match was Rise coming out of the winner's bracket versus Doom, and this is the matchup that we've seen time and again. However, this one didn't play out like a lot of them do. I feel like Rise and Doom is kind of like the Yankees Red Sox. Make sure you've got 4 hours to spare because this one is going to go long. But in this case, it was a 2-0 beating from the winner's bracket team, Rise.
Yeah, so you said it's the same old thing. We'll always see Rise and Doom, but I felt like this was a different Rise. And I felt like, going back a little bit, this whole series was a different Rise. There was something about them that they just weren't the Rise that we remember, but then something happened during Nationals and they completely changed it to where they had that fairly strong showing in open finals. And I was just kind of looking over the bracket. So they had Double Tap first, Kaiju, Notorious, Rain Bros, and then they just kind of, I guess, waited for the rest of the championship to happen. So what were your observations about that game?
I don't know how they won. If you told me game 1 that Tim Fulch and Alan Stott go out first and Rise come back and win, against Doom with full power, that's nuts to me. Doom coming through all, everything they've come through on the lower bracket, and to start up that high, that's a crazy good start for Doom.
I think on the opening rush in game 1, they left a ball on the line. Does that sound right, Bill? And immediately Pine takes out Tim Fullerton.
Wow.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, and then shortly after, Alan Stott gets taken out. So the first 10 seconds of the game, you're down 4-6 against Doom. One of the most dominant teams in the history of dodgeball. And what ended up happening was that a combination of Serge, Jim, Chad Landrum, and who else was in there?
Chris Bell.
They just kind of whittled down Doom. They did him. Chad had a ton of clutch kills in these games, but it was really all execution. There was a lot of like great advances, solid group throws. I think Serge and Chad ended up doing a lot of, I think, let's see, game one. So game one, Rise fights back and gets it down to a 2v2. And it's Serge and Chad versus Ish and Frank. And Serge and Chad just had really nice double teams from protected positions. I think Rise does this well, where they'll throw double teams kind of from their half of the court where they don't expose themselves. They'll get a nice either fake in, or they'll just rush right into it, and they'll get these shots off that the opponent can't really counter because it's happening too fast. And so Serge and Chad just kind of finished them off. And I think Chad was a key element in both of these games. And game two wasn't even close. It was unlike game one, where Doom got out to an early lead. Game two, Rise had a lead and just kept it and never looked back. And the next thing you know, it was a championship for Rise 2-0.
Wow. What are your thoughts, Bill?
Yeah, so once again, Tim and Allen going out first is gigantic for Doom. And then Chris Bell has to move to the corner and face off against Vince. And Chris is the one that lives. Like, everyone knows you're going for Chris Bell first on Rise. Like, he is, the giant arm. And in the Vince-Chris matchup where he has to move to corner, Chris is the one that comes out living the longest. And then from there, Lou was giving props to Chad, but Serge in that final 2v2 was he was dodging big. He was making his blocks. He made himself look open, but was in control of the court and dragged the throws to him and knew he'd get out of those situations. Like, I think Serge dragging that fire to him and knowing he can get out is like what secured them that first game.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I feel taking Chad, who's a very, very offensive player, and taking Serge, who's a very calculated, strategic defensive player, I felt like that was the perfect balance that would need to happen to make that work. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to comment that real quick since you brought it up. Oh, yeah. No, that's a really good point, right? Where if Serge is drawing the fire and keeping it away from Chad, like, that's perfect, right? That's what you want. Give Chad another volley to go at, whoever's on the other side, no matter what the game. Like, that you want to keep your throwers alive, especially, if they're not big catchers, or they're not great at blocking, or they're not holding a ball in the middle. Like, you want to keep those players alive. And Serge did that perfectly here. And I think game two, the issue for Doom was they had a lot of double teams on Chris Bell, and they couldn't hit him. I think it was like 3 double teams where they just gave up a big 4 or a little 4 to Rise, and just let them power through with that. Like, that was just great, like, evasive maneuvers. McMaster's pulling Chris Bell out of some of his dodges so he didn't fall out of bounds. And
yeah, Chris was very elusive on that. I think that's where you see like the contrast in like team philosophy. Rise is extremely frugal with their usage of balls. When they have 4 in the burden, 8 out of 10 times they're going to be throwing that burden, and they're going to keep all of their balls on defense. And then Doom was going for those double teams and coming up empty. And when you do that, there's almost like a psychological boost for the team that just survived a double team, and now they're rewarded with extra balls.
Right.
And they're now, they've now got 4 balls, and they're coming back at year 2. So you've got a lot of unprotected players. So I thought that was an interesting like clash of styles. But yeah, I think for anyone who wants to go back and kind of watch some of these games, watch game 1 of the finals and just see the way Rise grinds it out. I think they play in a way that any team could mimic. And if you're an up-and-coming team and you want to kind of develop your team chemistry or your play calling, like you could learn a lot from that first game.
I think even like the final play of Rise vs. Doom, where they had, 4 balls thrown on, I think it was Ish, with Allen eagling from the left side and like them all running out in that charge, like that's a calculated Rise play. You know they've practiced that play over and over again. They don't run plays that they don't think are going to work.
Yeah, you're not allowed to experiment on the court if you're playing on Rise. You're doing things that are tested and have known to work. I think taking a step back from that match itself, I think it would be fun to kind of highlight the addition of Chad Landrum to Rise. When Tyler Greer went out with a back injury and surgery, there was a lot of mystery over who they would choose to replace him. And Chad stepped in, I think, at round 3. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but
sounds right.
Round Chad's, 1, I think he started at the beginning.
Okay.
Actually, no, you're right. He played with I think Dave Benedetto was like thrown together team for round 1. So yeah, round 3 is when he came into Rise.
Yeah, and he seems to give them, just like that additional arm that can continue to get outs with solos after Chris Bell gets knocked out, and also takes some of the heat off of Tim as far as targeting when they're on defense.
Yeah, he's definitely an element I don't think Doom was ready to face. Did you guys know that Chad had played for Rise in the past?
No.
I was wondering about it. I mean, he fits in like perfectly. He's like tough, powerful, intimidating. That's on brand.
Yeah, so he played for Rise in 2012 at the Dodgeball National Dodgeball League, DWC there, and it was when I played with Beavers with Kevin Pack in 2012. We made it to the finals, and Chad was with them, and so it was pretty close. I feel like we had Rise on the ropes, and Chad just, if I can remember correctly, he got me out on a pretty solid like chip shot, and then he just ended up taking out the rest of us. And so he had already kind of been exposed to like the Rise brand, and I think Rise already knew based off experience where he would fit in. So that kind of might make sense as to why they were able to take this, for most people, an outlier, get him plugged in and have the results that they did. So I wonder if anybody would pick up on that or remember that. But yeah, he's played with Rise before, which is pretty cool.
That makes sense. That's awesome.
Yep. Yeah, it was cool watching him come out of retirement, so to speak, because he went out on an arm injury, I think in 2013, 2014, and he'd been out it for a while. But it's good to see him back and seeing that he still has an impact. We were talking about it actually last night, but I wonder what the answer is going to be next year, and I wonder what Rise is going to look like. And not to take up too much of the time here, but I had talked to Tim, I think it was during round robin, and I asked how he was doing, and he was saying that they weren't, there was just something off about them. Like Chris and Chad would go on the offensive. They would get maybe a couple people, but it'd always be the older guys, Serge, Jim, and Tim, that would be bailing them out. And they were realizing that it just wasn't working because it was making them work harder than they are used to. And so kind of like what Space Cadets did, whatever they did that night, going into Saturday, they found that perfect balance of offense and defense. That way, Jim and Tim and Serge aren't overworking themselves. But yeah, it's crazy seeing teams learn that fast now. It's crazy seeing them come together, talk about what's working, what's not working, and having a completely different team show up the next day. So it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just shows you that they've got a game plan and that they can plug in different players and make it work. And I think that for people looking to build winning teams, that I think that kind of shows you that talent isn't everything, and that having a strategy and a system kind of outweighs talent sometimes.
For sure, that and just repetitions, consistency, and practice.
Right,
Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
It's one of those things that, like, in basketball, right, you have like subs, every other sport, like, you have a ton of subs, but with dodgeball, you have like your core six typically. And so having to plug in a new person is not something you practice. And so the teams that can plug in that new person and be successful with it is really impressive, right? Like, you're not subbing people on the lines. There are some teams that play with like 7 or 8 on their roster, but Rise isn't one of them. Doom is one of them. But there's not a lot of teams that do it. And so a team changing a player before round 3 and becoming successful with it, that's really impressive.
Definitely. I think I wanted to go back real quick because I said Rise played against Kaiju, and I think I misread that. I want to say it was that Kraken? Can you guys see that by any chance?
It looks like Kraken.
Yeah, because I saw Kaiju. I was looking at what Doom's path looked like. Because we made the comment earlier where like Rise had their three games and they just sat there while Doom was just constantly getting tested. I mean, they had Kaiju, Wrecking Balls, Outsiders, and then Space Cadets. So they had a little bit more. Well, maybe not that much more. Did they lose a game? Let's see, went to Rise.
Rise lost one game to Rain Bros, it looks like.
Yeah. Okay. Man. Crazy.
But yeah, I mean, a pretty dominant final match there, and it's got to feel good for those guys to have won in such a fashion. And I think whenever those teams come together, we expect there to be a great play or a great effort or just a moment that kind of like defines the championship. And I think in that matchup, the fact that Rise was able to like keep those plays to a minimum was actually kind of like their strategy. Like they kept Doom, they kept Ish, our clutch man Ish, from like making any of those championship plays. And they were almost the wet blanket. They were trying to keep everything under control, and it worked. And next thing you knew, the match was over and they had won the championship.
Yeah, I mean that's what they do. It's what they're known for. They're very just solid, like you said, like a wet blanket. They don't let you play the game that you want to. They try to dictate as much as they can, and when they do have that control, it's just very methodical how they win. Yeah, I was going to ask actually if there was like any, because like I'm looking back at the Titan versus Doom match. Like for me, there was that catch and throw on Pie, and that was I'll probably remember that for a very long time. There was, I think Ketchum might have almost had a double catch. Was that match as well? Do you guys remember that?
Yeah, that was awesome. So same story. Ketchum is throwing into a double team, and he jumps the count. So he throws just a little bit before the double team comes from Space Cadets, and he throws at Matt Levine, who actually gets his ball out and makes the catch like almost simultaneously. And so he catches Andrew, and on camera we all we see is Andrew making the double catch, and so we're going nuts.
Right.
But when you watch the replay, Andrew throws a catch a moment before he makes the catch. So he's out instantly and there's no double catch. But yeah, I think that was just a slice of what Matt Levine was doing. He was catching everything on Saturday, and catching Andrew Ketchum straight up is an impressive feat, and negating a double catch. So good for you, Matt.
I'd say, and that was Space Cadets, not Doom, so that was my mistake. But yeah, what I was going for was just like, I felt like the energy and the drama and the intensity was brought when Titan played against Doom, and then kind of like, as you said, Rise and Doom were just kind of like this is just a straight up transactional game, if that makes sense. That's the impression I got. Would you feel the same, or do you have any thoughts on that versus any of the previous matches that you guys commentated on?
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I mean, I think whenever Andrew Ketchum is on the court, there's kind of this energy. There's like this anything is possible kind of feeling. And then when Titan went down to Doom, and we got the Doom Rise final for, what is it, like the 5th time? We see this almost every regional. So I think some of the excitement was sucked out of it there. But I would say that for anyone who like didn't pay attention, like they missed out, because Rise put on a clinic. And I think like the signifier maybe should have been that Rise was in the winners bracket. Like something was happening, and they never let go. Even though they went down early, they grinded back, and they just shut the door on Doom, who I think had won the previous 2 championships in Open. So they were on a 2 or 3 year streak of undefeated Open championships. And that's broken now.
Yep, the combo breakers.
Did Rise versus Doom to get to the winner bracket finals? Is that right?
No, they were on opposite ends. Is that what you're asking?
Oh no, like the I guess the second to last match, like that Rise played, was also Doom, wasn't it? And they 2-0'd them there. Is that right?
So, yeah, can we scroll up to the winners bracket?
I think this is right, because Rainbow Space Cadets are there, and so that's Rise beat Doom to get into the finals, and then beat them again in the finals.
Yeah, so Doom didn't lose to anyone other than Rise.
So let me back up here. So this wasn't that situation where Rise or Doom had to play Rise twice, was it? Where they had to beat them twice in order to win, or was it?
Yeah, it was. And so Rise had, it looks from the look of the bracket, Doom beat Rise to send them down to the losers bracket. And then Doom played the winner of Titan Space Cadets. And then Doom got back to the winners bracket to play Rise again, and they would have had to beat him twice. So Doom was 0-2 against Rise. Rise had Doom's number on this day.
I mean, if there's a day to have it, that is the day to do it.
Seriously. I mean, it must be those folding chairs.
It's gotta be. I mean, even back in the NDL days, like they brought the folding chair to Dodgeball. They would find their little corner, camp out, and that would just be, that's the Rise area. There's power in those things. And the Gatorade tails. Awesome. Well, I think that's all we need for this portion. Like I said, I wanted to reach out to you guys because you had like the really awesome commentary advantage. So before we sign off real quick, Lucas, do you have any final thoughts overall?
Yeah, I thought this tournament was just awesome top to bottom. It was great playing against so many teams from out of our region. We had a really strong dose of East and North and South teams in our round robins. So I think there was 42 teams in the open bracket, and I think that might be the most that I remember. So that was awesome. With the 18 courts, it really facilitated a lot of play. So I loved it from that point of view. I wish there weren't so many games decided on which team had the back wall in their favor.
Right.
We were the higher seed in a lot of matchups, so there was a strong correlation of us winning games when we had the back wall. I wish that wasn't the case, but most of these gyms have you playing against the back wall, so that's always going to happen. But other than that, I loved it. I thought the venue was amazing. It was really cool that the concourse, you could see the dodgeball from the concourse. And there was just so much natural light in that gym. So I loved that place. What did you think, Bill?
I absolutely love that whole experience. As a ref, I was going from playing ref. I think I got 5 games off total. And I think, Steve, you called it yesterday when I listened to the podcast with Mark and you called it a marathon. And I couldn't put it any other way than marathon. Your mind is entrenched in dodgeball that whole weekend. And the fact that you don't have to pop out of it and except to talk to someone else about dodgeball. It's just an amazing event. You get to meet a ton of new people. Like, this is my second Elite Nationals, and I think it was matched in terms of like Boston for me, just like how exciting it was. And it was an amazing event, and I cannot wait for the next one.
Definitely. It definitely recharged my dodgeball battery, so I can't wait for next year. Awesome. Well, very cool, guys. Thank you so much for hopping on. I definitely appreciate your time. I think we'll just leave it at that. So we'll go ahead and end this segment there. Very cool. Bill, Lucas, guys, thank you so much for hopping on and kind of just give me your perspective of what you guys saw. I thought that you had a really unique vantage point, doing the live stream and commentating. The fact that you guys have been doing this for a couple of events now, especially the bigger ones like UGC and whatnot. So definitely appreciate it. Loved hearing the breakdown and like the play-by-play. And I really feel like that's a really awesome element that I wanted to bring into future recaps. So moving on, though, let's go ahead and get into the next segment. All right, so I got Ryan Haley with me here. Ryan, hey, thanks for hopping on, man. Am I getting your name right, Haley?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. Good.
Very cool. Well, why don't you go ahead and just go ahead and fully introduce yourself, teams you played for, what you're known for, how long you've been playing, and we'll start there.
Sure, yeah. Ryan Haley. Played with LA Riot for Open and No Sting Nationals, and then I played for Zephyr for Coed. I've been playing Elite for 3 years. This was my first year at Nationals. My first 2 seasons I was with Showtime, and I think I was busy. I couldn't quite go attend in, I believe that was Louisiana. And then the next year, I played with Glenn's West Coast team, Resistance. And he kind of just put that together to have a team to play with. But we knew we weren't going to try to go to Nationals. I believe last year was Boston. So I didn't go to that. So this was my first year.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy to have you on, man. And it's kind of like a funny story of how it actually happened. I remember you posted something about like, hey, can we get some like different voices on the panel? And I'm all for it. And maybe I don't do enough proactive research or outreach to make it happen. But I really didn't mean to like call you out. I was just like, hey, dude, well, if you're offering, I'm down to have you on. So between that and the I guess like the missed meetings that we had, because I was trying to get to you with the in-person recordings. But I think just looking at the notes that you've taken, your setup, like I think this worked out for the best. So thanks for being patient with me and hopping on, man.
Great, yeah, thanks. I think most of the people that know me know I like to give people a hard time, but overall, I try to be nice and kind to everyone.
As long as it's constructive, I have no problem with that at all. So, well, cool. Well, let's just go ahead and get into. So this is your first year at Nationals. I've got pretty much all of them, with the exception of Boston, under my belt. But I'm really curious to hear, like, what do you think overall? Like, just did it live up to the expectation? How just kind of give me like your initial thoughts on it as a whole.
Yeah. Overall, I had a great time. I don't really know what I was going to expect. I thought it was just going to be like a West round 4. And I really, really, really enjoyed getting to meet the other teams from other regions. It's actually pretty nice to get to play against a competition you've never seen. That was probably the highlight of it. I guess I didn't realize how not boring or stagnant, but when you continually play the same teams over and over again, you kind of get into a repetition. Like, oh, we're going to play Rise. They're probably going to beat us. So we're going to play someone else. Well, we're probably going to beat them. So just seeing teams for the first time was really cool. And I really like to see the age range too. There was lots of young guys, lots of older. I kind of consider myself on the older end, I guess. But yeah, it was a really fun time.
Yeah, it's really. I agree. I mean, I was gonna ask, like, do you have that that feeling of, I guess, familiarity in LA, because you guys are so massive. In Arizona, obviously, it's easy to feel like we're gonna play against like 2 teams tops. For you guys, you're still considered like the mecca of dodgeball, but I kind of wanted to ask, like, you kind of already answered it. Do you get that feeling of like, man, we're playing the same people over and over and over again, no matter how you paint it?
In LA in general, it's a huge scene. We have mini leagues, lots of no sting, foam, a little bit of 8.5. I'm actually jealous of the Rise guys down in San Diego that do a consistent 8.5 practice every week. Here in LA, we only have an open gym on Wednesday nights that Mark kind of runs sometimes, but majority it's no sting. Almost you could probably play 6 nights a week here. So getting to play 8.5 is what's exciting to me about playing in the West. Because there are a lot of teams, but there isn't a ton of practice for 8.5.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's weird. You'd think there would be, but I don't want to pry into that too much. Maybe offline. But I like what you said also about how there's like a really, I don't know, really cool element about we're playing against a team in Texas. I've never seen these guys before, or we're playing against a team from Minnesota. I've never seen these guys before. Like it just, I don't know. It adds to that excitement. And there was times where like I have no idea who to look out for, because you're like, oh, I'm going to play against Titan. Obviously, we're going to look out for Ketchum. Make sure you don't take your eyes off of Ryan. Or I'm going to play against. You can just do that with basically any team. But then you look at this new team line up against. You're like, let's just see what happens. Did you have that moment a lot when you guys were lining up against people in your pool?
Yeah, I think so. There were some that we said we don't even know who these people are.
Exactly.
And then there were some where we could do some research on, let's say, the Tribune, saying, clutch modes rank. Let's watch out for Chris De Jesus. The guy's a catcher and a thrower. So that was actually kind of cool to see some faces along with their playing styles.
That's
and
cool.
And to go, okay, I'm looking out for this guy. Of course, I think he caught us like 3 times, so we didn't do a very good job of studying.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you knew what to expect. It was the execution that maybe fell apart.
Yep, yeah.
Or he's just that good. It could also be that. I've seen him.
I think so, man. There's a lot of young guys that are really going to be the next stars in dodgeball.
That's awesome. So kind of keeping this high level, just going back to the Southwest/West bias, were there any West teams that stood out the most to you that was, I guess, like other than the norm or the expectation?
Yeah, so I took a look at where teams were ranked on the Tribune's estimate versus how they actually finished. And you've got the Rise, Titan, Fortune, all finishing slightly higher than what they were estimated. So that was cool. But really, Rainbows, I think, was way down at the bottom, and they ended up finishing in the top 5, either 5 or 6, I believe.
Yeah, Rainbows didn't surprise me just because they in my mind, they've proven that they belong top 5 on the West any day. What I think surprised me was the addition of Brendan Cook, who is a monster, apparently. I remember, playing against him way back in the day, my Oregon days in like 2013, 12-ish, and he was good. Like you kind of, how you're talking about, like you can look at a young guy and be like, this guy's he's gonna go places, like he's good. Definitely had that for him, but I had no idea that he would have the cannon that he did, and I think Rainbows really utilized that to their advantage, and I felt like they were way more offensive than normal. That was from my point of view, though. Did you have a chance to play against them, and what were your thoughts?
I did, yeah, and I agree. I thought he fit pretty well there. It was a little bit odd. There's a team out of Portland called Downpour that he was on, so I think he left to go to Rainbows, and a few of the Downpour guys switched over and joined Double Tap. So you could see some teams split up to join others, and that actually improved those teams. I thought Double Tap, who I've seen a lot in the West, improved greatly by the 2 guys. They added, trying to think who they were, Kyle and James. They played great.
Yeah, James Alston, another guy I remember from, again, back in the Oregon days and even NDL. Like, that guy's always been pretty solid, and he's coming out a lot stronger and faster and better than I remember. So huge shout out to him, and also just the teams that are able to kind of take what didn't work and do away with that and put in what does. So it's always cool to see that, because sometimes it's like hit or miss. Like you see somebody on the lineup, like, oh, that's gonna work out for them, and it doesn't. But then you see something like works out better, and you're like, wow, it's good. They should have figured that out earlier. But any other players or new teams, I guess, kind of from the West portion that stood out the most to you, just overall?
I'm trying to think about the West here. Just something else about Double Tap, which, like I said, they just improved by adding a few players. We had played them 3 times in the West, round 1, 2, and 3, and Riot had beaten them. And they were actually the team to put us out. So it was almost like they studied us and knew what we wanted to do, and then were ready to take us out. So that was really impressive.
You said Double Tap knocked you guys out?
Yeah.
That's funny. Well, I mean, not funny for you guys, but it's just odd because that happened to us in round 3. Double Tap took us out, and they shut me down. And I was like, "Why are you guys picking on me?" And I think Alan's dad was like, "Well, we recognized you, so we just went for you first." I was like, "Well, that's not cool." But then it's also like, well, they're paying attention, and I think after talking to so many team captains, players, and teams, it's the teams that are like they're building off of the fundamentals. Like, yes, you can catch, you can throw. But can you watch other teams? Can you take the time to study film and understand who to go up against and what works and what doesn't? So it's awesome seeing that's like elevating or getting teams to break past their barriers. But let's go and move on to one more high level question. That was what was the most impressive event for you overall? Like if you can just take away one thing that you're just like, man, this is awesome. What was that for you?
For the tournament as a whole. One thing that this was awesome. I think just bringing it all together, knowing that everybody's playing in their round and they're playing their own style in the north and the south, the east, west, and bringing it all together to see each other's styles and to meet each other and say, hey, we've all got this love for the sport. I think that was the best part of the weekend.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it's just cool seeing all the variety that's coming together now because of nationals. Let's go ahead and move into some tourney observations and just kind of looking at your notes. You put in hotels and parties. I guess we can do that before we dive into the actual playing. So, what were you thinking there with that notation?
Yeah. I was pretty impressed with the hotel. I'm really glad that Jake, Mark, and the team got us a great deal. We all stayed in the same place. I think that was very beneficial for us to grow as a league and grow the camaraderie between teams. Just having us stay so close. I thought the parties were fun. Lots of drinks and getting to see everyone outside of their dodgeball gear was, of course, a pretty fun time.
Yeah, that was really fun. I remember just sitting with Sergio, and just looking at. I don't see people dolled up, but they, like you said, they were out of their dodgeball gear. It's weird seeing some people not wearing a jersey or not wearing knee pads, or oh, it's that guy, or it's that person from that team. So that was cool. And I agree. I think the venue setup was awesome. The shuttle service, I didn't utilize it, but I thought it was really cool that it was there. And I was really impressed with the fact that we were put up in a Hilton. I thought that was, it's almost like pulling out all the stops. It's this is the high level treatment that, some of us all secretly just crave and want to see happen for dodgeball to be taken seriously. But and parties, I thought there was only one, at least I went to.
Yeah, I feel like every night there,
gotcha.
Everybody was going somewhere to grab a couple of drinks, whether that was the lobby or a restaurant or a bar down the street. I feel like I saw tons of people out almost every single night. So it might not have been collected parties. Like
sanctioned parties, but just social opportunities.
Yeah, and what I liked about that was some random person walks up to you and says hey, I don't know you, but you're a great catcher, or you're a great thrower. I think that was really nice that we got to I feel like there was a lot of compliments. Just, hey, you're great. thanks. What's your name?
And then come the random Facebook requests, unless you're Chris Bell, then you just deny them because you're I guess you're too good for people.
Yeah. That's funny.
Oh, Chris Bell. Let's talk about the reffing. People have their opinions, but let's hear yours.
Yeah, so I have this for nationals. I try to ref as much as possible in the West, and try to, once the bigger games come down, try to be there, either helping. I know Joe Coella and Brett Baxter are great refs, and they typically do the finals games and such. So I try to help. And for nationals, I took it upon myself to go get a ref shirt. From my dad. He's been reffing his whole life, so he has sent me a couple. And so I wanted to ref, but overall as a player, I actually thought the reffing was lacking, and it wasn't that the refs themselves were bad. I just don't know about the system, how it's currently set up. I think some people are volunteered to ref, and they either don't want to ref, or they're not a good ref, or they don't know the rules. But I saw a lot of non-calls. And I kind of feel like the first rule of reffing is to have your confidence. You need to make a call and stick with that call. Now, if you need to discuss it with your partner, call timeout, talk about it, and make a call and stick with it. I thought there was a lot of arguing, a lot of, well, I didn't see it, so I'm not going to make a call. Well, that just puts both teams in this, well, wait, I thought he was out, and the other team says, well, I don't think he's out. And so the questioning, I think, breeds this atmosphere of, now I'm going to kind of point, or I'm going to try to influence. And that I thought could have been improved.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I definitely understand. And we had some situations for both Open and Coed where you can tell like the ref wasn't fully, I don't want to say like checked in, but kind of like we said, like maybe they were volunteered, like they're doing it because they have to. And so maybe they're just new. Because for some reason, a lot of people are intimidated by reffing. They would rather not do it at all. And for me, I don't mind it. I'll step in when I can. And I mean, if people can get in my face, they're just going to make it worse. But that comes from years upon years upon years of playing. It also takes upon the confidence of like, oh, I'm looking across from me and I'm reffing with Brett. No one's going to challenge that. Or I'm reffing with another confident person. And so if you are reffing with somebody who has no idea what they're doing, it just adds, like you said, like a different kind of element to it. And I think the setup or the administrative structure was great. Like we all had to take a test, right? We're getting compensated for it even to kind of help like sweeten the deal. And I forget, like, why is Elite Dodgeball sending me money? Like, oh yeah, because I ref. That's great.
Yeah.
But I think like there's got to be something where it's like, it's not, take a whole team. I'm not singling anybody out by any means, just a scenario, but take a whole team that does not want to ref. It's like, who are the unlucky two that are going to get condemned to ref, and are they going to take that into the games? And I don't know, maybe like referee clinics are the answer, maybe incentives past $40. I don't really want to go much past that, but yeah, I kind of agree. Like there were strong refs, there was decent ones, and there was one that's just like, we're better policing ourselves. Like this isn't gonna, we're not gonna get the calls that we need. So I agree with you there. That's funny. I didn't even question that you had a referee shirt on, by the way. I remember walked by you and it's like, oh, he's got a ref shirt. That's cool. But then I'm thinking, like, how'd you get that? So
Yeah. I brought a couple. So I gave one to my buddy Cliff Ferry and Jarrell from Arsenal too. So we refed as a crew for a while.
Do you know did I ref any games with you? I want to say we did.
I feel like we did too, but I can't put my finger on it.
I think we got a Rainbows game together. Yes.
Yeah, and I had lots of people come up to me afterwards and say, "Hey, I really like that you refed our game because you were stern with your calls.
Yeah.
You made a call. You didn't let people argue it." And I'll be honest. There are some teams that they don't like to argue, but they're intimidating. You got the Rises and the Dooms. And they're intimidating players because they're so good. So you think like they know what they're talking about, but any ref just needs to be confident.
Yeah, you just gotta make that call and stick with it. Come hell or high water. I remember there was this one play that happened, and God bless him, the captain of the team was like trying to call timeout. He's like yelling in my face. Well, he wasn't yelling in my face, but he's yelling at me to not to be a jerk, but he's worked up. He's like, timeout. I'm like, no, you can't call timeout in dodgeball. Like, what are you doing? Like, I told him to shut up. Like, you can't. And then he kept going. He's like, look, you're going to make me miss another call if you don't stop. And I think he gathered himself and calmed down. And, that Honestly, my first time refereeing, probably couldn't have done that. Probably would have, freaked out a little bit, but it just comes with time. But don't want to beat that too much. But I did want to kind of touch on what you experienced from your perspective. But let's go into the All-Star games. What did you think of that?
Yeah, man, that was really fun to watch, both the men's and the women's. I thought all those teams were really great, and it was really cool to see some of those players stand out as like, whoa, that person is a legit all-star. Like they're putting the team on their back. So somebody on the West that I thought the West came out, and I thought they were dominating in that kind of a round robin-ish that they did. But then they got down in the finals, and I forget who it was to, but I want to say it was like 2-on-4 or something. And I want to say it was like Tim and Nate left, I think. And I just feel like Tim just stepped it up and, played like he normally does and says like, they're not going to take me out. I'm here to win. The West won that one for the men's, and I thought that was really great.
Freaking Tim. That guy. I remember playing in a charity tournament with him, and he was just going full Tim. And I was like, dude, this is a charity sand dodgeball tournament. Like, what are you doing? And he just said, Steve, I wasn't born with a half and he doesn't have anything. And so for him to like say, no, we're not going to lose. I'm going to Tim my way through this All-Star game, which is supposed to be for fun, like it doesn't surprise me at all that he pulled a Tim and continued to just help his team out. And looking at the All-Star lineup, I was like, no, thank you. Like that is not a team I'd ever want to face off against.
I also enjoyed Ketchum and Brody bringing a little bit of comedy to the court as well. I mean, we're all there to have fun. So there were a lot of funny moments during those games. That was really great.
Yeah, I think Brody is just the physical embodiment of a funny moment in everything he does, even to include offline or off the court. That guy is she's fun to watch. But I just remember, I think I saw Brody and Ketchum about to throw, and that's when I had my no thank you moment. Like, yeah, I don't want any part of that. Good luck, whoever that is. But did you notice anybody else on the other All-Star teams that you might have noticed, or that did sort of shout out? Like, who was giving the West like the hardest time?
Oh man, let me think back to that.
I want to say it was the South, if I remember.
It could have been the South. I think they had a couple guys from the Outsiders.
Yeah, then it would have been the South then.
Had a couple of good catchers on the South team. I remember that. I think the North I think the East was having some trouble. I think the North played well.
Yeah, it was legit All-Stars. Like I really liked the whole setup, and I even think in my interview with Mark, he said like that was one of his like one of the few things that he really liked the most and thought it was like just the most fun. So yeah, that's very cool. So did you get a chance to catch the women's All-Stars as well?
I saw the women's. I did a line ref for their matches. Very impressive, and it was really great to see them from all the regions play.
For sure. It looks like West Women's took it again. Was that kind of not to put any other region on the spot, but like, did the West Women's dominate, or were there other regions that kind of gave them a run for the money that you can recall?
I would say that they played pretty well in the round robin. I think there was one other team, and I'm forgetting who it was, that gave them a run. But overall, it was very competitive matches. I think for the West, I think Azalea, of course, stood out to me. Karina and Brianna both stood out. But yeah, they were great games.
Yeah. I mean, I said this earlier in another episode, like not to dismiss them for the talent, but I'm looking at this lineup. I'm not surprised. I've heard a lot about Kiki. I don't know her last name. I think it's Kodana, but I know that she's been a huge factor. Talking to Crystal Briones and just understanding that these. I mean, this is like the powerhouse team. So,
yeah, I've been hearing her name a lot lately.
Yeah, that's awesome. I hope I'm going to see. Let me slow down. I'm going to Bell's, and I'm curious to see if she's going to be there because then I know like who to watch out for and see like what she's like in action, so to speak. But let's go ahead and move on to, since we're kind of like talking about stuff that wasn't quite the actual tournament. Let's go into Showdown. What were your thoughts on that, and who were you rooting for?
I was rooting for Mikey. From the Outsiders. I mean, his last name's Hashimoto. I just think he's just a rising star. He's going to be a great player. So I'm excited to watch him grow and continue to get better. I watched the finals there against him and Glenn. And Glenn's been there but before. I believe he's won it before. So I was rooting for Mikey there. I really wanted him to take it. So Glenn won, so congrats to him. But I hope Mikey can take it next year.
Yeah, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to add insult to injury. Literally, that was a terrible pun. I did not mean to do that. That was not an intended pun. Mike McGee, breaking his hand, like he obviously didn't get to compete, and so the Showdown didn't get to run its full course. So I'm wondering, what would that have looked like had he been there?
So, actually, I think what happened there on the East was Mikey and the other guy, and I'm blanking on his name, who came in second. Actually, Mikey had stepped over the line, I think, a couple too many times, and the other guy who took it, man, I wish I knew his name. He said, I don't want to win like that. Let's continue to go. So Mike McGee won, but in actuality, if you went by the rules, the other guy would have won. So he actually stepped in and played in the Showdown.
Oh, nice. You're thinking Andrew Zappala?
Oh, yeah,
Zappala.
Yeah.
I call him. Well, I don't like. I didn't like. I coined his name. They call him Zaps, so I go with that because I don't know how to pronounce his name for some reason. So you're talking about Zaps. Like he's like, yeah, I don't want to win that way. So he ended up conceding his win because Mike eventually did understand lines, how they work, and beat him. So he got to fill in then.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Yep.
Awesome. So how did that play out? Because I'm guessing, did he go up against Michael Coed from Oregon?
I think he did, but I actually didn't get to see that match. Actually, no, I don't know if he went against him. I think they each would have gone against Glenn and Mikey. But I didn't see those. I only saw the last match.
The last one. How did Mikey look? Was he very offensive?
He just seems like he's calm under pressure.
Yeah.
I didn't think he was rattled at all. He was just, I'm here to play some dodgeball, and he looked great. That's
awesome. Yeah, because I did a team interview with them, and the Hashimoto brothers are hysterical. They're always like talking to each other, and they're just. I think they told like they were acting more cocky than normal, but they, like you said, they had that calm, collected demeanor. Like, I'm here to play dodgeball, and I was just curious what that looked like when you're actually playing, especially when the stakes are high, like Showdown. But I was going for Glenn. I was going for the older generation. So. No offense to the other guys, but I was happy that Glenn took it. But I also hate change, so that's just me being old.
Nice.
Let's go ahead and finally get into to the other divisions now, and we'll start with Open and just kind of how we started with the tournament. I want to start with just like your high level thoughts, and so just overall, what was your main takeaway for the Open division?
Open, my main takeaway, like I've said before, was I think everybody came into the day probably just a little nervous, not knowing who all is going to be there and what the other teams are going to be like. So I think once everybody shook the nerves off after the first two games, I think everybody really started to play like themselves. It was really cool, like I said, to see lots of different teams. The ones that what shocked me the most were seeing, I've never really played against the young college guys. I think they play up north. The NCDA?
NCDA. Yeah.
So getting to see them was different for me. There was certainly, I thought they played a different style of dodgeball. And I know they are typically in the pinch division. but they carried themselves differently than how, let's say, the teams in the West Coast carry themselves.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed with Notorious, and just seeing, like you said, like a different, just a different team, like faces I don't recognize, jerseys I don't recognize. I've heard of the name a few times in the recaps, but that's about it. And just seeing these guys just throw down was really cool. Because for me, the norm is like a new team will show up and they'll just get rocked because they don't know what they're signing up for. But I don't feel like that was too much this year. How do you feel about that?
So specifically on Notorious, I think, it was it was good to see them. I actually don't think they were ranked on Tyler's list on Tribune and ended up finishing in like 5th or something. So they played really great. But other than that, I did see a couple teams who I think were probably down towards the bottom who were basically saying we might not win a game today. So that was surprising to see.
So you did run into some of those teams then.
Yeah. There was a couple that just looked like they weren't having a very fun day.
That's a bummer. I think I was in a fairly decent bracket, because I don't think there were too many teams that were just getting completely mowed down. Because I agree, like, especially in playing in tournaments like outside of Elite back in the day, like you never want a team to come that's in to Dodgeball as brand new, get rocked and then never come back, because you want people to come back, you want them to practice and get better, and you want that growth. So it's always kind of sad to see teams get steamrolled and not have a good time. But hopefully these teams that shut up go home and be like, wow, there's a lot of work we got to do to contend, and they do come back.
Yeah, I agree. I hope everybody takes it as a learning experience and improves their game and their strategy, works on the fundamentals, and comes back and is better next year. For
sure. And you're right with Notorious. They tied for 5th with Rainbows, which is, wow. That's kind of, to me that's a statement. Like that just shows the talent there, and I guess like where they belong on a national level, because we're so used to like that Western comparison.
I'd love to bring a team like Notorious out to LA and let them play in the LA scene, because I will say my opinion, and this wasn't just them, it was a couple, like I said, the younger college guys seemed a little, not aggro, but in the LA scene out here, it's Jake really helps us with this very inclusive. We're all here to have fun. It's competitive, but we don't. At the end of the day, we're going to shake your hand and have a beer with you. We're not going to try to fight you. We're not going to. So seeing some teams outside of the West was eye-opening for me, because of
like that, maybe not inclusive factor.
Yeah, like I'm just here to. I'm here to win, and I don't care. Like, I'm not even going to talk to you after this.
Gotcha.
That kind of thing.
It's like, hey man, there's more to this community than this dodgeball. Like, we actually are our community and like each other off the court. So gotcha. Were there any other teams that kind of maybe talked about it already, but just any others that you might want to mention, just overall, or at least in the open division? Obviously Space Cadets has been coming up, I think, in every single episode of this recap. For me, like it was incredible watching that happen. But did you have any other experiences or notice any other teams as well?
Yeah, that was great. I broke it down by region. So in the East, I was really impressed with Clutch Mode. And I mentioned Chris already, but there's a guy on that team called Tyler Alcantara, I believe his name is. Jesus Ramirez, that guy can really catch and was not afraid of the ball whatsoever. So I really like seeing them. I think Clutch Mode also picked up a couple guys from Z Warriors, TJ Jefferson and Dalton Byron. Just young guys with a great attitude, here to have fun. I really enjoyed meeting that team.
Nice.
Goat, those guys were great. Let's see, Louis Velez, Justin Bosch, great, just all around great people. And it really helped me see like what the East is all about. Of course, you got team Awesome as well. Was really great. So that was cool. And then last, of course, Joshua Ty on Arkham. Just great guy, fun to be around. The East is really made up of some cool teams.
Yeah, Joshua Ty, that guy cracks me up, and has been doing so for years now. But he's also really, really good. And going back to your comment about Goat, they're an awesome group of guys. Again, I got to interview them in a like a panel interview, and it was great just like getting to know them, and it was great seeing them in person. And then we had to like line up against, I was like, oh man, the fun stops here. But it was fun. Like we were able to play against them, and it was, like you said, we're friends off the court. But yeah, huge shout out to that team, just all of them. They're solid dudes.
And lastly, Aftershock. I didn't know too much about them, and I thought they played really well the times I got to see them.
I don't think I got to play against them. I'm trying to remember what their jerseys might have looked like.
I think they were like a maroon earthquake type
Gotcha.
pattern. Maroon and white, I want to say.
That's the thing, is like, it's kind of a good thing. Like, man, there's so many new teams here. I didn't get to talk to everybody, which is I don't know. It's a weird problem to have versus it's the same 10 teams over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So we kind of covered, I guess we kind of covered like the East. Were there any of the West teams? Like you mentioned Double Tap previously.
Rise, of course. I think they finished in the top in almost all of the divisions. They played great, but just seeing Tim was just on fire. I think he took me out like 3 or 4 times, just right on top of the shoe. I had no chance to catch it or dodge it, and I just think he just played a great tourney.
You mentioned in the notes James Wright, Alan's dad.
Yeah. So every morning, I rented a car, and with Cliff Ferry, who's on Riot, Brett Cobble, who's on Riot, and Anfan on Zephyr and Grit. And we would go out to a diner every morning at 7 a.m. Just to get a pre-breakfast. And one morning, James was there, and he came up to us and started giving us crap. But he was just the nicest guy in the world, and that was just such a great experience to see him outside of the court and just know how great of a guy he is. I really liked that. It was awesome.
Yeah, he gives me hope. Not to like date anybody, but he's obviously one of the older players out there, and he's still scoring up with the best. So I love seeing that. And I had like I hope it was a funny interaction. He might have thought I was serious because I can be kind of like deadpan and stern looking, but I said, your son is a terrible person. I hate him. He's like, yeah, he's the worst. And I never got the chance to say just kidding. I'm sure he knew I was, but if you're listening, Alan or James, I'm joking. I like Alan a lot. So, but speaking of Alan's, I was going to mention Alan Stott. Wow. I interviewed him, I think in January, right after Sin City, and he made this comment where he's like, my only focus right now is getting Rise another championship. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing. And to see that come full circle was really cool. And I made that comment on his Facebook. I was like, dude, I'm right here at this mark at 11, whatever, you say this, and look what happened, man. That's so cool. Other than playing like Alan normally plays, did you notice him in any of your chances? Did he look different at all to you, like more offensive, more conservative, or did he just kind of stand out in your mind with Rise and that lineup?
I think their whole team did a great job. Chris Bell, Alan, Chad, Landrum. I think they all played great. But yeah, Alan, I feel like when I see him at the West rounds, I think he's a little bit maybe takes more risks, and maybe he was playing a little bit more conservative, which we could probably all benefit from. But yeah, I thought just as a team they played great. Like I said, I'm super jealous that they get that weekly practice, and I would love to establish that in Los Angeles.
Well, I will say, not to call any of the LA guys out, but the fact that they're able to sync well when two of their players are in Phoenix and another one is in Utah says a lot about what they do in between practices and off the court, and if that can be replicated or mimicked or just internalized, I guess, in some way, the teams that do that are going to go far. So yeah, like practices go a long way, and this is proof. I mean, Rise they were kind of looking like they weren't going to do very well, especially with the previous rounds leading up to nationals, and they did something that obviously worked very well. So it's just a nod to hard work and making it work regardless of the whatever obstacles might be in the way. So
yeah, and I think it says a lot about just fundamentals of dodgeball. They just do that stuff great. And I would say Rise and also Rainbows do a pretty good job of strategy as well. There are certainly two teams that stand out to me in the West that they've thought, when this happens, we should do this, or let's try to run this kind of a play. And when you've got the fundamentals down, you're able to move on to advanced dodgeball. And I think they both do a great job of that.
For sure. I want to go back real quick. This kind of bleeds into it. So you had Brick Squad, and I'm looking at your notes, and I see you put Dylan and Mick, who are obviously West Coast players. But I didn't want to overlook Brick Squad either, because I feel like they had a pretty good presence as well. But do you want to kind of comment on why you included Dylan and Mick?
Yeah. Brick Squad in general was just a fun team to play against. Playing against Sean. And I really like seeing that they picked up a couple of players. So I know that Tuda and Heat didn't go. And I think, so they picked up Dylan, Mick, and I believe Baby Gio played on their team. But yeah, it was really cool to get to see them as a team. And I thought they played great together, even having new people on their squad.
Yeah, I feel like it would have been kind of tragic if to go from winning UDC, which is a huge deal, especially since you took out Doom to get there, to just not go to Elite Nationals. So props to Mick for showing up, and Dylan, who I know loves rubber. He told me in confidence that he absolutely loves rubber dodgeball now. He's giving up foam. Totally true, 100%. Like, this happened last week. It's awesome. Nationals changed him, but Baby Gio. There's a third Geo out there, right? That's what you're saying?
Yeah. Yep.
What's his name?
I forget, and I just wrote in my notes, Baby Geo.
I guess it's Baby.
Baby, yeah. But those guys are all great. I met them at the pool in the hotel. Just that whole family is just great people. Yeah,
it's. I'm so glad that they still play. They knocked us out, I think, of Open. Yeah, they did. It was a pretty good battle too. I remember like talking to Drew and just kind of catching up. Like, man, I've known this guy for quite some time now, and he's a good dude. I'm upset. Like, obviously I wanted to win, but I'm not mad at this. Like this doesn't hurt as much, if that makes sense. They were the better team that day, and they moved on, and it was just great seeing some of the older teams still stick around, especially on the East Coast. But let's move into the North. What teams did you notice? Like, we kind of talked about Notorious a little bit.
Yeah, so there were a couple of home teams, right? And it was just really fun to hear. You hear all year long about TC Boosh, and really getting to play against them. I think I played against them a couple times. Was really great. I think everybody on that team is just a good person as well. You think you got Eric, Cody, Derek Johnson, DeMonte, Bizzle. They were just nice people. So that was really nice to get to play against them.
Yeah, they're a good group of guys, like you said. Again, I got to talk to them not all of them. I got to talk to Derek, DeMonte, and I got to talk to Eric Stone a lot, especially because he helped out with a lot of the Northern recaps. And they're just solid dudes. I thought it was hilarious because in that interview, Derek Johnson said the one thing he's looking forward to the most was the Taylor Swift concert. I'm like, okay, buddy, whatever you say. And then sure, he's I'm gonna have to boot that out. He shows up at the Taylor Swift concert. There's a picture of him like the night of or after, I think, Elite. So I thought that was just funny to see that come full circle. But yeah, and Bizzle, Jeremy Meadows, he's a good guy too. I've known him for quite some time, and we're Pokemon Go buddies. Seriously lacking on the gift giving, but he's always cool to see. And just like you said, any team can be a part of this. Any team could have that. I'm looking forward to seeing this guy and having a beer with them or playing against them. It doesn't just have to be show up, play, and leave. And hopefully, efforts will be made on both parties to make that happen for some of the new teams that showed up that are NCDA specific. But let's move on to the South now. So for me, Outsiders just came out of the gates. And again, gonna sound like a broken record, but this should be the last time got to interview them, got to know them really well. So I was happy to see them kind of show other regions that they belong and that they are a force to contend with. And when I look at where they finished overall, tied for 7th. So I mean, they made their statement, I feel, especially with Mikey in Showdown. What are your thoughts on them?
Yeah, they were a really fun team to play against, and I listened to that podcast, and so I was excited to see them. Someone who really stood out was Von Kelly. I think he just carries himself with maturity, and he's a great player, but also a really great person. So I was overall impressed with the Outsiders team.
Yeah, like I said, that they're a good group. I didn't get to catch Von Kelly meditating though. I'm really bummed about that.
Yeah. Me neither.
Next time, I'll look out for that. I think we covered all the regions. I don't know if there's can I ask if there's any matches that you might have noticed that just stood out to you the most? Like you're just like, man, this is going to be in my memory 2 weeks later, so I can talk about it. Anything like that happen to you at all?
No, I really like when it seems like everybody now is filming games. So I take my camera to every tourney. I load it up afterwards. I'm really liking that everyone is capturing these games, and then you see a cool catch or a cool throw, and you're able to make a little clip and share that. I just think that's really great for the sport of dodgeball. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, I agree, and that's for me. It's cool. I get to watch this later, and I love the clips that are showing up. And I'm always going to point to Is Brody an Alien that Mick Wood posted. God, still brings me so much joy. But one that came out recently was oh man, what was his name? But he's from Fortune. He's wears a hat. But he drops a ball and they do it to the Backstreet Boys. Or shoot, oh my God, I'm gonna get crap for that. The Beastie Boys. Have you seen that clip by chance?
I don't know.
Oh no, it was Intergalactic Planetary. That point where it's let the beat drop and. Okay, I got to share that with you offline. You got to see that. It's not, no offense to anybody, it's not as good as Brody and Alien, just because, like I said, Brody is the epitome of a meme. He's just hysterical. But this is pretty good, and I like seeing that. And there's another clip of I think oh no, spacing out. He's the guy that he jumps over, he clears 2 balls, gets hit by 1, and then 30 minutes later, another ball comes out of nowhere and sticks him in the face.
That was Miles Garner. I believe,
Miles Garner. Yep.
Oh man, yeah, and just another shout out to him. Just a super nice guy. I really like meeting him. Great guy.
Yeah, and not to mention he's putting together workout plans for people. I don't know if he's charging or if he's just doing that because he's being awesome. But either way, the fact that he's just doing that is fantastic. He seems like a really nice guy. I haven't had a chance to talk to him yet. There's just so many people I didn't get to talk to at all. And I was going to say, when I look back at Open round robin, you're kind of saying how you had the first couple games of maybe not jitters, but you're just that anxiousness, the anxiety of oh man, dodgeball is going to happen. And once the whistles blew, though, it was like fast forward for me. It was like it would just went game after game after rep after rep after game, and then it was just so much to take in. It's just like trying to process that still, but it just feels like it just went too fast. How do you feel about that? Just open overall?
Yeah, open overall. It was a really fun day. I'm glad that Mark broke it down in a way where we were going to play the round robins on day 1, the elimination on day 2, and then switch it up on day 3. I really liked the flow, and I didn't feel too tired.
Yeah.
But it was a long day. That first day was a very long day.
It definitely was. Let's go ahead and go into Coed a little bit, just because I feel like the same. Not to dismiss Coed by any means, but just there's a lot of dodgeball that happens. So observations were kind of this first person. Like I played against this person and this happened. But what were your thoughts on Coed?
Yeah, so we started the day against a team called, I want to say their name was Renegade. Let me just double check real quick. And it was actually, it was Renegades. It was Voodoo, and but Voodoo had split into 2 teams, but they all still wore their Voodoo jerseys. So we played Renegades first and then Voodoo second, but both teams were wearing the Voodoo jersey. So it was a little bit confusing when teams split up or they go play for someone else. But if you wear the same jersey, it's you're trying to figure out who you're playing against, I guess.
Yeah, that was a little confusing too, because like we played, I think you said Renegades. No, we played Voodoo, and then here we are playing against Renegades wearing the Voodoo jersey. Like, didn't we just play you guys? Like, it really threw me off. And like, I think there was a moment you like even confused the refs. Like, but we played, like, this game already happened, so I totally get that was very confusing. So Voodoo, if you guys are listening, don't do that again, please. Like, just
yeah.
Making us question our sanity.
That stood out to me was Retro. I think David Tate's put together a really fun team. I think it was like Tad, Ashley, Mick, Jordan, Perkowski. That was just a fun team. It was really fun to play against those guys, and they looked like they were having a blast. And that makes you have fun too when the team you're playing against is just having a great time.
Yeah, Retro looked good. I might want one of their jerseys, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, good group of guys. And I'm so glad you brought up Tad, because that kid is hilarious to talk to. He's an awesome person. But quick segue. So I was asked by Felix Peroni to ask Mark, would you rather face off against like 100 ducks or like 5 duck-sized horses or something like that? And I chose ducks, because at least I would die laughing hysterically, because it'd just be hilarious seeing 5 ducks coming at me. They're the size of horses, and I told him I would air this too. He, because of reasons, Tad got me to retract that. I would not want that to happen. It sounds like it would be a terrible experience for me, and I don't want it. And this is mostly just in case Tad's listening. So you changed my mind, dude. But I'll leave it at that. But yeah, Retro is a good team to play against. I think what I like the most about them, and where I got really sappy with my thank you Elite Dodgeball post, Spirit of Dodgeball is still there, was looking at people like Tad, and I cannot think of his name, but he was a taller blonde kid. Oh man, I can't think of it right now. It's gonna come to me like after the fact, but just talking to him and Tad and just seeing their excitement and just seeing that they're having fun.
Was on Retro?
He was on Retro.
I believe there's a kid on there named is it Jake Bubba Lester?
No, it was it's not a normal name.
It's not a normal name.
Yeah, I'm like adding 2 insults to this guy. Tall blonde kid, definitely young.
Jackson.
Jackson, yes. I guess that's
that's kind of a normal name.
It's a last name, so that's where I was going. Yeah, talking to him and Tad, and just seeing like they're happy to just be here, and like no offense to Retro at all. And I know Tate's kind of even made this comment, like they weren't expecting to take number 1, right? They were just there to have fun and see how far they can get, and that was totally fine. Whereas you have, as Mark put it, this gross sense of entitlement where people are maybe taking this, I don't want to say too seriously, because you're supposed to take a national event seriously, but they're letting it completely ruin like the integrity of the game. So understand that that's where the stakes are, but you have a team like these guys and you have these younger kids that are just absorbing every moment of it. That was so refreshing for me to see, because when people see, or people say like, oh, this person's the future of dodgeball or that person's the future of dodgeball, sometimes they're not really pointing to like the best person that they could, maybe because they have some maturity to go through, or maybe they need to just kind of, get some testosterone out or what have you. But these two kids, that's the future of dodgeball I want to see. Like, they can contend. Tad is a phenomenal player and he's learning fast, but he's got such a good attitude. So I want to see that happen more. So just huge shout out to Retro and David Tates for putting that together and having that fun element into it. Because if you're listening to this episode, I want to say you probably listen to Mark's, and it got real in certain areas. But any other Coed teams that you noticed? Just kind of on a high level.
I think I don't think I've mentioned Rogue yet. I'm not sure where they finished, but that was just a fun team to play against. I know. I think there was Ben, Tyler, Page. I think they picked up CJ Garcia. Just Rogue was just a fun team to play against. I really like them as well. The only team I saw in Coed, there was a team called Category 5. I want to say they're in the South. They didn't seem like they were having too much fun in the Coed rounds. But I think, and there were a couple of those. But other than that, I think everybody was just having a great time. I mean, that's why I play for Zephyr with On. Everyone on that team knows that sometimes we're going to throw the balls away. Sometimes we're going to get crazy. But we're here to have fun, and that always makes my tourney when I get to play with them. And win or lose, at the end of the game, I'm going to put on a big smile and go on to the next one.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, and you guys tied for 17th. Speaking of with Retro, and there's some good teams in here that can contend. So, like, going into this approach, like, we're going to have fun, we're going to play, but we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to be okay with it. Like, that seemed to work out. I mean, if you're cool with being, middle of the pack, so to speak, what else can you ask for? I was upset with my team only because there were moments where we were just mowing through people, and it was in those moments it was like, we could actually contend. We can get maybe top 5 if we continue to play this way. But then we'd go back and do completely dumb, silly things. And so it was hit or miss for me. Overall, I really enjoyed it. Loved playing with Chad. It was really fun playing with Brandon. And, I enjoy playing with Joe Fernandez as well. And but man, there's just so much. I'm like, oh my God, if we just like tighten up, we could probably win. But yeah, it was Coed was where I had, I think, the most fun. Actually, I like playing with Grit too. They were fun as well. So I'm like 55-45 Grit Coed. But I want to say one thing. Apparently you can spike a ball in dodgeball. I don't know who we were playing against, but me and Joe were lining up to throw, and somebody cross courts Joe, hits him, and like this ball pops up, and I have this horrible instinct to just like reach up and like baseball style catch a ball, or maybe football. Like, you just go out of the zone you're not supposed to, and you can't reach. So I do that all the time still to this day. So I jump up and I reach for it, and I like try to palm the ball, and sometimes I can do that if it's coming at the right angle and the right speed. So I try to do that, and I almost get it, but I flinch because I'm realizing delayed. Like, you shouldn't be doing this, man. Like, why are you doing that? And so I ended up like just throwing the ball down. And so to the naked eye, all it looks like is I just jump up to throw a ball on the ground, and then I realize, hey, guess what? You're out. So. And a few people saw that. They had some choice words for me as I was walking out. I think my favorite, though, was Kenny Cox saying, just go home, Steve. like you're done.
Yeah. And
I couldn't agree more. I was like, I think I broke. I can't recover from this. I don't know what I did this, but that was probably like my highlight of Coed. Did you have any highlight moments from yourself or from your team?
Yeah, so I had shared a clip that night after elimination. We actually got put down in the losers bracket by Boosh, but to end the first game against them, I think we went 2-1. I had a simultaneous catch. It wasn't a double catch, but against Tanya, and I want to say Derek. Derek threw at me, I caught, and then Tanya's ball was following it, so I just kind of took my right arm, stuck it out, and had a second catch.
Nice.
Catch there. So that was one of my favorite plays of the weekend.
Yeah, so I have like maybe an unpopular opinion, a little bit of a bias when it comes to double catching, because there are double catches that happen, I think the majority are just good placement. Like you just so happen to close your hands in and boom, instead of one ball, you now have two. And I don't want to take away from the mental aspect that has to happen for you to make that catch actually occur. So like, oh, I meant to catch one. Here's another ball. I need to secure that and maintain control of my body. So like, even if it's an accidental double catch, there's still some skill involved, right? But
yeah, for the most part, I consider myself a catcher. I've actually only had one other double catch in my career. I was playing in WeHo a couple seasons ago, and it was just if two people can throw at the exact same time in the exact same place, you just kind of wrap your arms around it. And yeah, I don't think there's as much skill in that as there is. Yes, I think Brenda Kramer had a double catch where it was like one was going one way, one was going the other, and she caught them both. That skill. Joe Coella, I want to say in maybe it was Sin City last year, had a really great double catch where he had two arms going two different ways. I think that skill. My thing is I always focus on that first ball, and then the second one typically hits me because I'm not going to try to catch them both. I'm going to try to catch at least one, and the second one's going to get me out. So it's pretty rare for me to get a double catch because I got to get at least one.
Well, I was going to say, like, to be able to secure that one ball and then see another one coming in and secure that with another limb within, 1 second tops, like, I feel like that should almost count as a double catch because I feel like that requires a lot of skill and awareness and just the confidence and decision to know you can rope this one in with a single limb. That's awesome. It's funny you mentioned Brenda because I was just talking to her about potentially recapping the bells of the ball, and I had just seen, ironically enough, her double catch clip as well. So I was like, oh, cool, I get to talk to this Brenda. This is great. That was definitely looking deliberate, and like you said, two separate areas, two separate balls that are being secure. Like that's a double catch for me. Joe Coella with his double catch in Sin City, I think people were debating if that was intentional or not, and after reviewing the footage late one night with nothing better to do, it was like, yes, that was a double catch for me anyway.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think Chris De Jesus had a really good one where he like secured them both and just kind of let himself fall out of bounds and realized he's still in because of momentum. So I mean, they're happening way more frequently than freak occurrences, if that makes sense.
Yep.
At least in my opinion. I think, like you said, I mean, I don't want to get too into the weeds with like the actual matches because if people want to watch, the footage is out there. We all know, Echo took first, which is super impressive going up against Doom. Looking at the standings though, Havoc and Force. I really enjoyed watching Force. So I finally checked in or tuned into Coed's once Force was making their way up. Was there any team that you noticed that was like just doing really well, at least on like the top 5 or 6 level, like once we got closer to finals that you were able to watch, or were you preoccupied?
Yeah, I agree with both of those. The Havoc and Force, it was really nice to see Havoc put together a good run. Been watching them in the West for a long time. They've got some good girls on that team. So it was really great to see them. Force too. I mean, they've just got like an all-star team, so that was really cool to see them play well. But yeah.
Did you who was Doom playing against? Doom was playing a couple rounds and what's her name? Tracy, what's her last name?
Oh, and Tracy caught one in the face?
Yes.
That one. I want to say that might have been, was that Echo?
Was it Ketchum?
I want to say.
They gave her the black eye even? Like,
yeah, it was just a point blank catch right on the face, and that was impressive.
That was, Jesus. So, I mean, I've known Tracy for a lot. I'm not saying we're homies or anything, but I know who Tracy is. I know that she is not somebody that you throw to, or Sarah. Like, I've had so many horrible experiences where, Team Evil's playing against Doom, and we have a chance, and then we throw, our dumb, no offense Mason, but we just have like guy throw that ball that he's not supposed to, and we're like, no, don't do it, and we just watch in slow motion as Tracy or Sarah mop it up, and then we lose, and then it's over. And so it was so cool seeing Tracy still bringing that to the table.
It could have been Anarchy. I think Doom beat Anarchy to go there. Could have been like Billy or somebody.
It was somebody that throws really freaking hard, whoever it was. But yeah, like has Tracy been playing in the previous rounds?
Yeah. I think it's been Tracy, Brianna, and the last girl, Sarah. Is that her name?
Yeah, Sarah.
Yeah, I think they've been at almost all of the rounds, I want to say.
Okay. Maybe memory's not serving me correctly. 'Cause I remember like Tracy, I think she took a break maybe, or I don't know, but yeah, it was just good seeing that happen. And my God, like that was a catch that I think that stopped the entire gym for a second. Then I think I don't know if she did it again or if she took another face shot.
Yeah, she had a couple catches. It was, very impressive.
Yeah, it must have been, maybe it was Billy. I'm sure somebody will hopefully correct us if we're wrong. I don't, I'm looking at the brackets. I don't think Echo played Doom until the finals, so somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but either way, that catch was insanely impressive, and then that face shot was gnarly, but she just took it like a champ. We talked about Force. Let me see if there's any other Coed teams that stood out for me. I think conversations can be had about any team. Bias for me, Alliance. I felt like they had a pretty good run. And talking to some of the players, because I know them, they were really happy with how they played and how they turned out. And a lot of players were happy to see them still showing up and representing Arizona, which is they're a fun group of people to play against. But any others that we might be overlooking that you noticed, or shall we move on to Nosting?
The list here. I feel like everyone finished in around where I would have thought.
Yeah. Again, congratulations to Echo. You guys are monsters, but I was really more impressed with Force. I love watching them. They were fun. Yeah. All right, so let's go ahead and go into Nosting. I am bummed because I'm not going to blame the schedule change too much. It was just more not being able to adapt to my end. So I wasn't able to play because of that. So I sat out the entire event, but also it worked out just because my body was wrecked. But did you play Nosting?
Yeah, I played in Nosting, and one of the things that I didn't anticipate was having played in Coed and Open 8.5 for two days. I didn't realize the toll it was going to take on my body, but also like a mental game too. I'm play Nosting here in LA. I mean, at one point I was playing 5 nights a week, and that's a ball that I'm very good with. But man, I was having a hard time catching. I was just so used to catching the 8.5 that when we went to Nosting, you really had to change up your style. So I didn't anticipate that playing something for 2 days and then switching it up and how different it would feel. So it took me a while to dial in my throw. It took me a while to dial in the catches. But yeah, I think that's interesting to play one style and then jump to another. You gotta transition.
Yeah, I can only relate to Sin City. Like transitioning from Nosting to rubber, it's like everything gets slower but harder. Or I don't know. Like for me, it's just like, oh man, I have to like learn how to play dodgeball again within like a couple of games time frame. But after a couple of days of 8.5, you feel like that's kind of what, I don't want to say like hindered you, but that was kind of hard for you to adapt to at first.
Yeah, like Sin City, you're just overall tired. Yeah. But for this, I thought, and I almost thought it's easier to switch from a Nosting to an 8.5 because the 8.5, is a heavier ball. You've got to get that grip on there. So switching down to a Nosting, I thought was a little bit harder for me, especially as a catcher.
How about the arm? Did that take a toll on your arm?
I feel like I've been playing for now about 5 years, and I feel like I know how to throw each one, whether it's foam or Nosting. And yeah, I don't have too many arm problems. I wear a compression sleeve, and yeah, my arm feels fine. Gotcha.
Yeah, I was curious too, because you said it. some fitness guy can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but it would make sense to start from something light to go to something heavier versus the reverse, and then go to pinch for some of those crazies. But yeah, I was just curious like what that transition was. But I guess if you're stretching out and taking the proper precautions and wearing the right equipment, you should be fine. But going into no sting, again, high level stuff. What teams stood out from you that you were able to either observe or play against?
So let's see here. We played against, overall, so I played with Riot for No Sting, and we had a rough start. It was certainly, we lost a lot of games in round robin, and I think just the mental toll of going for two days, you're staying out really late at night, having some drinks, and then waking up super early. I think everyone was just kind of in a bad mood. It was very uncharacteristic. I think there was a lot of pointing, a lot of arguing with the refs, especially on our side, which is very uncharacteristic of us. So to be honest, I was a little bit embarrassed about how some of the teams we played against. Now, I will say the reffing wasn't the best, but regardless if the reffing isn't good, you should never try to argue or yell or point. You just take it in stride and say, okay, hey guys, it's a game. We lost. Let's go on to the next one. But I think after listening to Mark's podcast, I think it just goes to show that as the weekend goes on, everyone's getting a little testy. And I would no doubt by pinch, everybody's kind of mad and grumpy. So I don't know if there's something to be done there, if we can change that, or just be aware of it. If we're all aware of it, we can all just try to put on our best smile and say, hey, it's just a game. Yeah,
I think the biggest one is awareness. Well, like you put any body of people together. I mean, there's like cycles. Like they start off, we're getting to know each other. Then, we really like each other. This is awesome. Then they hate each other. And it's just like so bad. Usually after that, though, it brings people closer. But you can't really do that within the course of 3 days, especially when, as you said, some people are partying. There's alcohol in the system. You're playing a game where the point is to hit somebody with a projectile, and then you throw in pinch, and that put some sauce in that projectile. So maybe that's kind of what started escalating the situation, or started I can't think of the word right now, but started when the forest is about to burn because there's tinder. Is that the word?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna edit that part out. But maybe there's it just set the stage for some of the blow-ups and the meltdowns. And like you said, the referee may not have been on par, but stuff that just kind of agitated it a little bit more. I'm not sure what the situation is, but going back to awareness though, I feel like for me anyway, that's where it definitely needs to start. So I had a fantastic experience. I had maybe one quasi-negative reffing experience, which I mentioned to with Mark, but that wasn't even directed at me. That was just me rethinking, did I miss a call because this team is about to go at it with each other. That's all I saw. There wasn't anybody yelling in my face. There wasn't anything that detoured my experience. So it was 99% positive for me, for many reasons too. And so I'm like, man, this was great. Thank you so much, Mark, Vince, Glenn, all you guys for doing this. It's amazing. And then I talked to Mark, and I'm like, holy crap, it is a difference of night and day when it comes to what I saw and what I experienced versus what he did. And, for me, I just know to try to be better next time, maybe pick up some more trash, or maybe, not like we have this problem with grip, but if everybody was ever to mouth off to a ref, just pull that guy aside and be like, hey, stop it, So,
yeah, that's a rule that I have for all the teams that I play on is we're all going to be, we're all going to carry ourselves with a good attitude, and we're not going to yell at each other. We're not going to cause a rift, because if you come back after every single game, let's say you just had a loss, and you start saying, why'd you throw that, or why'd you do that? I just think that makes the whole day just not fun. So it starts internally, hey, we're a team, let's have fun. And then you got to show that to the teams you're playing against. And hey, we're a fun team. We're not here to, talk crap. Let's just play dodgeball.
Yeah, some teams can have that attitude. There's gotta be a balance. Like talking to Pyan on Doom, I feel like they found that balance. Like this is a team that works really hard, but at the end of the day, they're there to have fun. And again, I might be corrected if I'm wrong, but I feel like you can have both. Like you can have that positive attitude, you can show up, but you can also put the work in and dominate other teams. You just have to, I don't know, you have to have trust in each other, or you have to have rules, like you said, where we're not going to mouth off. We're not going to be that guy.
Yeah.
But I hope a lot of positivity comes from that talk with Mark. I hope it. I mean, like for me, it it opened my eyes. I hope it does the same for other people. But that was a doozy. But let's move on though. Were there any other teams or players that you noticed?
So the teams we played against in No Sting, I thought Outsiders, of course, played great. Aftershock. Showtime played really well in No Sting, so I like seeing them. They're a West team. Brick Squad, of course, played great in No Sting. And then Riot didn't actually start to play well in No Sting until we got to the elimination brackets. And then we had a really great game against Doom. They beat us, but we had a great game against them. And then we actually beat the Lone Star Syndicate, who I think were ranked higher than us. So beating them felt good to have such a crappy round robin and then beat a team that was ranked above us.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm looking at this bracket, and it looks like Team Awesome had a pretty good run as well. I know that I think it was Drew that said he wanted to just get over this very forgettable year. Or he made some kind of comment where it's like, they're not having the greatest of times. So hopefully they're able to kind of get some motivation after how they showed up. Looks like Retro went pretty far too. Speaking of Retro.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the top 12 teams, it's not a lot of surprises. Echo, Fury, Brick Squad, Doom. You've got a lot of good teams in there. Retro finishing in the top 7 there. That's pretty good for them. I think that's great. There's a team called Pain, and I want to say that was the team that was also from the Twin Cities. Okay. As well, I want to say. So that was cool to see them do well. Space Cadets finish in there within the top 9 in No Sting. That's good for them.
I still can't get over Pain. That's hilarious. Shade, I love that team.
Shade, oh man, yeah. Everybody on Shade is great. That's a fun team. That's a fun. I'd actually. They're in they're a co-ed team now, but man, I'd love to see the guys on that team grab a couple more, or shoot the girls and come over and play open. I think they are very capable.
Yeah, they. We had 2 of them. We've got for Grit, we've got David O'Brien, who that guy's solid. He's got a great arm, really cool to play with. And then we had Alex Chad. Do you know how to say his last name by chance?
Claude?
Claude,
yeah,
oh my
Alex
gosh.
Claude.
Sorry. Yeah, Alex Claude. So we had him on our team. So we had a little bit a taste of what that team could be. Should Shade ever go open.
Yeah, Claude. Alex Claude is great. So is David. Yeah, they are great players.
Alex Claude, that guy cracks me up. It gives me every reason to look forward to May for that Justin Timberlake meme.
Nice. Oh yeah, exactly.
Cool. Well, looking at the standings, congrats to Echo, going from 8.5 championship to No Sting championship is pretty awesome feat. So good job there. And then Fury, wow, for taking second. That's also a pretty scary team. But kind of like you said, the teams I would expect to finish where they did is where I'm looking at more or less. I'm just trying to see if there was a match that I had that I liked the most or had the most fun in. Yeah, I think it was on the flight home for the Echo versus Fury. But yeah, Fury's definitely a force to be reckoned with. And yeah, going back to Team Awesome taking third, that's again, hopefully that kind of turns the tide for them. But I'm really happy seeing Outsiders in 5th, just because again, trying to get the South on the map. I mean, I feel like they've done it. So definitely looking forward to seeing them next year. I think that I'm good as far as Noasting goes, but were there any other comments or shout outs that you wanted to throw out there overall, just kind of bring this to an end, to recap everything?
Yeah. Well, there was a funny story on the way back to the hotel after the first, let's see, is that the first night or, after the second night, we had just gone out to that bar, and I forget what its name was. We did all the awards, right, with Mark and everybody.
Right.
And we were walking back, Cliff and myself, we shared a room, and some guys were leaving, some young guys, and we were getting back, I don't know, like 1 or something, and they were leaving. We're like, where are you guys going? We got to play tomorrow. And they said, oh, it's only Noasting. So they must have been pinch guys.
Oh, I see.
So when we were leaving the next day, we had just played Noasting. We were leaving, and some people were just getting to the gym to play pinch. And those guys, I think, saw us and said, "Hey, where are you guys going? We're about to play some pinch." And it was really vindicating. Is vindicating a word?
Yeah.
To say back to them, "Hey, man, it's only pinch. Like, who cares?"
Man, ouch.
So that was nice.
Felt vindicated. Pinch is starting to change my mind a little bit.
I didn't grow up playing pinch. I've only played pinch, I think, once in my life. I flew up to Seattle for a tournament once. And the tournament was an open tournament, but they play pinch just in their in their open gyms. That's the only time I've played. I mean, I've got pretty big hands, so I don't feel like, I don't know, I feel like you've either grew up playing pinch or maybe have smaller hands, and that's the way you can really grip up an 8.5. But I have no desire to play pinch.
Yeah.
And can't see why it would stay around if people get hurt playing it. People, I don't know. I don't get it.
Yeah, without dating myself, when we started, pinching was allowed because we didn't know to make it not allowed. So I definitely was able to pinch pretty well back in the day. The NDL said, no, you can't alter the ball. To them, it's cheating. So we stopped, and I never looked back since then, because I agree. I feel like you should not have to alter the ball in order to throw it a certain way. But I will say, for those guys that can hang with pinch and can throw 80 mile per hour freaking crazy curve dip types of balls and are into that kind of stuff, then all the more power to you. It is definitely more than just, I'm mishandling the ball so I can throw it faster. Like, there is a skill set to that is required, and seeing some of these teams play at the highest level is it's impressive, but not for me. So I'll just leave it at that.
And the people with the bigger hands and can have a really strong grip, can still get a slight curve on that ball with just doing the clamp throw. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't think it'll stay around for forever. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I know it's like NCDA's biggest thing, and what I really love is that NCDA is feeding people into elite. So if pinch is like the concession to make that happen, cool. But like I said, it's a controversial subject. I won't say it's touchy, but I can definitely get into it for quite a bit on it. But we'll just leave it at that. So, well, cool, man. Well, thank you so much for hopping on and taking these notes. And when Mark told me that you print out the schedules, you tell everybody where to go, I really started realizing, like, oh man, this is definitely somebody I want to recap with, versus just a quick 2-minute, like, hey, how are you feeling about today? Okay, what's going on? And then leave it at that. So I think it really helped bring another element to this recap process in this series. So I really appreciate it, man. And thank you for being patient with me and even going from comment to commentator, so to speak. So I appreciate your time very much.
Yeah, thank you. This was great.
Awesome. Awesome, Ryan. Thank you so much for hopping on. That was definitely going to be, I would say, like the meat and potatoes of the of this version of the recap. I really appreciated you taking the time to list down your thoughts and write down teams and players and certain elements that took place. And I really agree with what you said, where, you know, if you want to watch like the actual games, it's available. So I hope people appreciated that style. But now we're going to go ahead and move on to women's. Alrighty, so for this segment, I have Amanda Ashley and Emily Hotz here to join me and talk about women's division. Amanda, welcome back. Thank you so much for hopping on and being so willing to do this consistently. I appreciate it. But just for the sake of repetition, go ahead and introduce yourself, your team, and the role you had.
My name is Amanda Natalie. I played in the past with Davis Dodgeball and in years past for women's Davis Dodgeball, and then it became 007. But this year we founded the team Coed Dodgeball, but I wasn't able to play because of my ACL reconstruction. However, getting close to the moment where I'm getting cleared to be back on the court, so should be back next season.
So close.
Yeah.
I feel so bad because I saw that you weren't wearing a knee brace when I interviewed you and Frankie. I was like, oh, so you're playing now? I'm like, no, still out of it. I'm like, oh, dang.
Yeah. So I have the knee brace, but my PT and I are pretty on board with if I need a knee brace, I'm not ready to play. So I'll probably wear it in the first couple months when I get back on the court. But if my knee doesn't feel ready to play without it, I'm not ready to play.
Yeah, I mean, still got to do it the correct way and let it heal. That way you don't make it worse. So that's hard, but probably the best thing for you to do.
Yeah.
And how about you, Emily?
My name is Emily Hotz. Same teams as Amanda. We've really consistently played together my dodgeball career at least. And this past year I was the captain of KO.
And how long have you been playing dodgeball?
For me, I believe this is like 6.5 years now.
Okay, cool. And then, so correct me if I'm wrong, KO wasn't part of Nationals, right? You were playing for a different team?
Correct. Yeah. Unfortunately, we were plagued by people having busy schedules and unfortunate bout of injuries this season. And we just did not have enough people to commit for a full team for KO. So we just happened to reach out to Kelly on Beavers, and they actually needed 2 people. So Kate Cairns and I played with Beavers at Nationals, which was a ton of fun.
Awesome. Okay, so that's how it happened. Because I remember seeing, I've been from the West and all, I'm fairly familiar with Beavers. So when I saw, I think it was like 3 new faces, like, who are these people?
That's us.
It's all coming together now. Well, that's good. At least you got to play on a pretty good team. And I'm just looking at the standings, and it looks like they tied for 7th. So definitely a good finish there. But let's just go ahead and go into just like a high level, like how did the division go overall? And we'll go back to you, Amanda. Just some of your like high level thoughts. Granted, again, that was just like 2.5 weeks ago. But what were your biggest takeaways?
I think the thing that didn't really surprise me was the way it fell with the top, 7 spots being the West Coast teams. They have so much talent out there. It was a little disappointing to not be able to bring KO out and be able to see what the team could do against them, because in years past we haven't done as well necessarily in bracket play. I don't know if we've even faced them sometimes, but it's always fun to play against them, kind of see how our play style varies against theirs. But I guess Anarchy fell in a tie for the top 7. Honestly, I was expecting them to do a little bit better than that, so I think they had a disappointing finish in their eyes, and it wasn't exactly what I was expecting from them either. I didn't really get a chance to see them play. From what I understand, I think Michelle Radley said she kind of fell off. She didn't feel like she was having her best day, so that might have played a part in it. She's a big part of that team. Who knows? But yeah, not really surprised to see Invasion Money Shot and pop that in the top 3.
Right. Yeah. It's. I've made the comment quite a few times already, and we don't want to dismiss them for their talent, but it's like you said, it's no surprise because you look at those lineups and you realize, or you also notice the fact that they've been playing for a very long time. Do you feel like East is slowly catching up with that, like with the inclusion of new teams, new players? Like it's on before we start seeing more parity, as Frankie would say.
See more what?
Is parity what he says? Like when?
Oh, yes. I think we're working. I think the West does a lot to help grow the women's division and the women's talent. I know they have their own women's leagues outside of Elite, and that's not something that I know of that the East Coast has been able to replicate yet. We have a pretty large women's base here in Boston, but even with that, we haven't yet formed or fielded a true Boston team. You know, it's always been with Meg Fricker from Pennsylvania and Nicole Napoli from Philadelphia. So I think it's hard to maybe get to the level of the West Coast women when, I mean, we get to play against the men, so I guess not, but still to be able to, you know, consistently play with the same people and get to kind of know their strengths and their weaknesses.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like that's what makes or breaks a team. Like you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have that synergy or that familiarity of playing with that person over and over and over and over again, you know, that's going to cost you when it comes to playing against teams that do have that. How about you, Emily? How would you say the division went overall?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of the things that Amanda said. Definitely not surprised to see those top three teams up there. Two teams I was definitely interested in seeing how they were doing, Love Tap and Witness. There was just so many rumors going around about, how awesome they were, and they were these powerhouse teams. And I think a lot of the time when you see the same people, the same teams up there in the top few spots, everyone's rooting for the underdog. Everyone's like, oh, who's gonna, come out of nowhere, or, who's gonna take that top spot if you weren't necessarily expecting it. So I was really interested to see how they did, and just, I guess, didn't have quite enough. Those top teams just have so much experience up there.
Yeah, I was kind of bummed. Love Tap didn't take it all. I've gotten to know Crystal really well, and really like what they were bringing to the West Coast, I guess, for lack of better words, because it's amazing that Invasion and Money Shot do so well, but then like you said, you kind of want to see like a new team, new faces go in and do well. Were there any other teams that you were kind of hoping to I don't want to say do well because that sounds terrible, but any other teams I guess you had your eyes on aside from Beavers?
Yeah, well, definitely Beavers, since I was playing with them, which was kind of fun. But Amanda also mentioned Anarchy, but Ashley Cook is such a strong player. And, she won the women's showdown. She shows us all what she has when she plays. She's just really at home on the court. She moves around with ease. It's pretty awesome to watch her, do her work on the dodgeball court, and having them win the East Coast, especially against us, KO, all season. I was really hoping that they would go in there and give everyone a run for their money, just kind of in the spirit of the East. But maybe next year's East Coast top team will be even stronger than that. Who knows?
Definitely. And that's what I was kind of asking Amanda, is like, do you think it's only just a matter of time before we start seeing, different team names or different regions in the top 3, top 4? And Ashley Cook, I don't think I've ever heard of her before.
What?
I'm just kidding.
Oh my gosh, I thought Sorry, I'm really gullible.
Well, let's go back to, I guess, some of the teams now. We kind of talked about some of the West Coast teams. I kind of want to ask you, Amanda, were there any teams that stood out to you the most that, from all the recaps that we've done to just seeing everybody, all regions included, were there any teams that stood out to you where you're just like, wow, these guys are great, or impressed you, or you just wanted to like notice or remember? From
the East Coast or just in general?
Just in general.
I think the team that stood out to me the most just at Nationals was Fuego. they, I believe, got knocked into the losers bracket pretty early on, which for most teams is a quick way to get out. You know, you knocked in first round, second round, and the wind's kind of knocked out of you, and it's hard to come back from that. But they just kept rolling over teams, and I feel like it wasn't even. I don't think it was like, maybe rolling over is the wrong word. I think they were taking them to 3 games every time, and it was close plays, but they just kept making like clutch play after clutch play. So it was really exciting to see them continue to figure things out on the court, especially in such a big venue.
It's funny you mentioned that because I did a quick Bells of the Ball pre-cap with Brenda Kramer from Money Shot.
Mm-hmm.
Similar thing. They got knocked out right away, and she'd mentioned that same type of like, you know, it takes the wind from your sails. Sometimes it's really hard to rebound from being knocked out right away. And it looks like both Money Shot, Lobs and Money Shot made it all the way to the finals, but Fuego must have done the same thing where they collected themselves and you know, made it as far as what I think 4th place.
Yeah.
So that's incredible to be able to rebound like that and not let that initial, I don't want to say sucker punch, but you know, like that feeling of how did this happen, to turn that around is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And I wanted to note Venom, the team I was kind of like looking out for, knocked them out. So did you have a chance to watch any of Venom's games?
I did, and was not surprised to see that Ashley Guevara was again like leading the pack. I think teams figured out pretty early on that they needed to get her out, but she is she's really squirrely. Like, she gets down really small and she dodges well and she blocks well, so it's not an easy feat. But yeah, she continued to play really well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was kind of alluding to her just because I've known her when she first started playing here in Arizona, and only because I think she'll give me crap for this, but it's Guevara now. Like, I think I finally figured out how to pronounce her name the right way. Mentioned, like, yes, I'm listening, Ashley. I think I got it right. If not, go ahead and correct me. But squirrely is a good way to describe how she plays. The reason why she stood out the most to me in the past was because she's very offensive. Like, she would be at the line trying to take command of the team, and I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. She just had no fear. So that's kind of why she's always like somebody to look out for. In addition to Venom, though, any other teams that you might have noticed, Amanda?
I tended to kind of hang out, you know, with the Beavers. So watched a lot of the games that they played. I don't think, though. Yeah, I think Fuego really stood out to me. Like you said, Money Shot also got knocked down into the losers bracket pretty early, so to watch them make that comeback all the way to the championship match was pretty awesome. But yeah, I'd say those 2 teams stuck out the most.
Gotcha. And how about you, Emily?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Venom is a team that we definitely fought against in the East Coast while we were doing our regional tournaments. They're a really strong team. Ashley is a force to be reckoned with. And in the informal statistics that were collected from all of the games, Ashley had the most amount of kills out of any women player at all in the round robin. So that's pretty amazing to me.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And from Money Shot definitely also stood out. You know, they won last year, the women's division, right? So definitely ones that I was keeping my eye on. And Brianna London and Brenda Kramer both love watching them play as well. One team that, let me see how they ended up doing. They actually tied with Venom and Precision and Ride or Die. It was Weapons of Mass Destruction. And they definitely surprised me when we played them. Jen Woodley is on their team, and we were all just like, oh my gosh, we have to get her out. We have to get her out. Like, she is just dominating on the court. So that was one team that I didn't expect, but definitely surprised me.
Awesome. And that's just a shout out to the South, right? I'm pretty sure it's the South team.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that's awesome because I'm looking at the standings and even though it's a different amount of teams, they seem like they're almost in line with Outsiders, another team from the South that was really trying to put that region on the map. So it's awesome seeing that. Did any of you guys had a chance to play against the Box Cats by any chance or see them?
I did not see them play.
That was another team that I was looking out for just because they're primarily from Arizona and they have Grace and Jasmine Bentley, who are like, she's like the funniest person to watch play dodgeball. So I wanted
Jasmine is wonderful.
She's the best. Yeah, so you know who she is. Like, just there's only a few people in the world where I can just like look at and I'll just have a goofy smile on my face because I'm about to laugh at anything they're doing. She's one of those people that she's hilarious. Let's see. I wanted to ask about. Actually, let me back a little bit. So, Emily, what was it like playing with some West Coast players? You got. I think the only person I can remember right now off the top of my head is Kelly, who's she's been around for a very long time. I would say she's like legendary status. What was it like playing with them, or have you had a chance to do that previously?
I had not played with them previously, but I played in the LA Women's Classics this year for the first time, and I got to know a few of them a little bit, which the Women's Classics is an insane tournament that is all 3 ball types, and it's run to the T. All the games are timed. It's recorded over the speaker, so you know exactly when the game is ending, how many seconds you have to get to the next court. It's really cool. But playing with them, Kate and I have played together for a very long time, and integrating onto another team that's played together for a very long time, I think it took us a little while to get our groove and kind of see, okay, what are the positions on the court that we're all comfortable playing. Ania was an amazing right corner, which is left corner, which is typically where I play. But she was doing so incredibly well. I was like, girl, you stay over there, you do your thing. Checking out the stats, she also made the top player. She was top 3rd for top throwers in the women's round robin, which is pretty awesome as well. So I had a ton of fun playing with them. They're high-spirited. We did well. And, we did the best we could with not having played together before.
Yeah, I'll say to replace, was it 2 players or 3?
From our team or their team?
For their team.
So it was 4 Beavers and 2 from KO.
Gotcha. Yeah, so even 2 players is enough of a change to alter the dynamic for the team for better or for worse, and it sounds like it worked out really well for you guys. Placing 7th is definitely no small feat. What did you notice, Amanda, just from watching the Beavers play? Any amazing takeaways or?
Obviously, I knew that Kate and Emily weren't normally a part of that team, but I felt like they found their groove pretty quickly. It took them a couple rounds of round robin, but by the time I got over there, mid-afternoon, they had definitely figured it out, and they were able to kind of continue that groove on day 2, bring it into round robin, and played really well together when they needed to, and just had some unfortunate breaks that didn't kind of go their way. So, but overall, I don't think anyone who would walk onto the court to watch them would have known that these 2 girls had just hopped onto the team last minute, and they didn't normally play with the rest of the team.
For sure. Yeah, like I was saying, when I noticed different faces, it wasn't even it felt like they belonged, for lack of a better word. It was just who are these people? Are they new? Again, are they from LA that I just missed out on? But yeah, it's really awesome. Well, speaking of players, stay with you on this one, Amanda. Were there any just specific plays or players that stood out as well? I know Emily's busting out with the statue, which is awesome. But what did you notice?
Oh man, I haven't even looked at the stats. It's probably going to sound pretty obvious. But Brenda Kramer was crushing it for Money Shot. It's awesome to watch her play because when she makes a big play or when someone on her team makes a big play, she just gets so hyped that it's, even if she didn't make it, she gets so excited, and it's awesome to watch her play. Katie Sanchez obviously earned the MVP for a reason. She was phenomenal to watch, making catches, making outs. I think the person that stood out to me that I didn't really know before the tournament that was huge, there was a couple of them on Fuego. So Ryan Johnson, I think based off of her court presence, was the captain, and she seemed to be doing a great job of it. I think she was a big reason they made it as far as they did. She, it seemed like, was making the play calls and was making the right ones. And then I think I'm probably going to mess this up. Emmy Zappa was playing with them and was playing really well. And there's another girl I don't know off the top of my head, but there was so many women on Fuego that just were like all day long were just continuing to like impress me every time I watched them play.
It's awesome. I'm glad you mentioned Brenda, because we were talking about, I mean, her double catch just became, I won't say it became public, but like, I guess footage is coming out of these GIFs and clips, and the double catch is sick looking. And then watching the team react to that was also just as exciting.
Yeah.
Let's see. What about you, Emily? What did you notice player-wise, just all across all teams?
Other than the ones we have already mentioned, whenever I see Rachel Rodea, or Rodea, however you pronounce her name, play, I really appreciate her court awareness. She's playing aggressively, but also defensively. She's getting outs on the counter. She's sniping people when they're not paying attention. So she's somebody who definitely stood out for me. I thought was maybe in the running for MVP, but Katie Sanchez also played awesome, really kind of took that home. And then Rolina also, I think, played really well, and she got me with a face shot at one point, and so that definitely stuck with me for a little while there. But all of those players played really well.
Yeah, Katie Sanchez is she's amazing. She's almost like she's a monster, but like in all the good ways. And I heard her freaking little push throw is like my kryptonite. And you would think after playing with her or against her for, I want to say like at least 9 years now, you think I would know better, but I still can't help myself. I either try to catch it or I just like watch it hit me in the foot, and it's so frustrating but funny at the same time. Did she do that at all when you guys were playing against each other, or if you noticed?
I did not notice that.
I don't know if she would do that with a no-sting ball, but like, have you ever seen her do it before though?
I haven't, but I hope you share some video of it.
If it's out there, I would love to. But I guess she mostly does this with 8.5. So like you can, have, like you're squaring up against her and you can like, you're about to throw and she'll just do this real quick, like push throw. It's like, I don't know, sometimes it's just so dead on. It'll hit you like right in the toe, and it's, or sometimes you might be able to catch it if you think it's coming. But yeah, she, I guess with that all the time, it's just like one of the small things that she can do that's awesome. And then Rachel is, she's phenomenal. Every time I play against her, like I gun for her right away because of that court awareness, her accuracy, and she's got a heck of an arm too. So I'm glad they're getting recognized for their talents. But the only other person I want to ask about was Angelique. Did you guys get a chance to watch any of her games or see her play?
I did. I saw the finals match against Invasion versus Popdat, and I feel like maybe it didn't get down to where she needed to make some of the big plays I was expecting of her after watching, Bells and UDC and all that. But I feel like something happened because I don't know if she maybe got hit in the face or got a concussion, because later in the weekend she wasn't playing anymore, which was a little disappointing to see because she's so fun to watch.
Huh. That's interesting. I'll have to research that a little bit because it says, I was reading the Tribune, and so that there was another clutch performance from Angelique. I can't say her last name. Did she play in the championships?
She played in women's. I think it might have happened during Coed because Night Shift played them in Coed maybe in both Coed 8.5 and Coed no sting. And for one of the divisions, they had 3 girls, her, Rowena, and oh my gosh, Rochelle. They had a third girl. I'm really bad at names. And they were rotating out every other game. And then when we played them again the next time, she was just, cheering them on from the sidelines, it's always fun to play against her because it's fun and scary. But yeah, she definitely played in women's, but I feel like maybe, I know we're discussing women's, but it was a little sad to see that something might have happened and wasn't able to finish out, whether she got sick or whatnot.
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, I like what you said. She's fun or dangerous or scary to play against, just because we all know what she's capable of. So it's like this is going to go really well for us or really badly, but it's just what she does. It's awesome.
Yeah.
They kind of like a side question, but were there any injuries that you noticed in women's? It felt like there was people. At least maybe I just saw it like at the right time, but like I saw a lot of people getting carried off the courts, like a lot of like rolled ankles. Might be like broke his finger or his knuckle. I think. Do women's have any issues or?
I don't recall seeing any injuries.
Yeah, not for the first time this season for the East Coast teams. I don't think so.
Well, let's not jinx it then. I was just curious with.
But the East Coast was definitely jinxed in the men's department with Mikey, and one of the guys on Arkham ruptured his Achilles. So the East Coast definitely had their fair share of injuries this season.
Right. That's right. I think you were telling me about that when I was talking to you and Frankie. I was just like, oh, I don't even want to pretend to know what that feels like.
Yeah.
It's rough. Well, the only other question I have, at least as far as play goes, was, and this might be a gimme, but what was the most dominant? Starting with you, Amanda, and maybe we can just pretend West doesn't exist for a second.
If the West didn't exist?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, so if the West didn't exist, I think the East definitely would be the next most dominant. So when you take out the top, 7 teams, the next 3 are Anarchy, Precision, Venom. So I would definitely say East if the West doesn't exist.
Sure. How about you, Emily?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah. What else can you say, Yeah,
I mean, the standings kind of speak for themselves, but
I feel like that's unfair too because, the East we had the women's division last year that while it wasn't a full 6-on-6 and it wasn't the full season, we still got to, throw it together for round 3, and we've had co-ed for years and years before that at least. So there was always, I feel like, this pool of women that was, wanting to play more, and I don't think the South and the North have had that opportunity. It's like you can play open or in pinch, or you can play open 8.5 and open no open no sting. So I don't think I would expect the East to be ahead of the West and the North in that sense. And I feel like because the North doesn't have a women's division, a lot of the really good North teams, North women went to West Coast teams. So I know there's a few on Witness. I think Paige Peterson played with Ride or Die. Ashley Cook played with Anarchy. So I feel like if they ever decided to make a true women's team from the North, that they would be very dominant.
I think so, because some of these women are playing pinch, and so like that just shows like the fearlessness and whatever you can take from pinch and apply it to a different division. So I'm looking forward to the day when there's I want to say an equal amount of teams. I feel like West is always going to have the most, but when there's just a solid representation for each region. So that's why I keep saying, like, you think it's only a matter of time before we start to see more East teams taking the top 3 slots or top 5. And I feel like it is. And I wonder if, after nationals, if people are talking like, hey, we should start practicing more, or we should push more for more division time or what have you to get to that level. So I say it's a matter of time, but yeah, I would definitely agree with you guys. If West didn't exist, East is definitely next.
Yeah.
So this other question I have, it's kind of a 2-part, but we can go to both of you guys, and that is, do you feel like this year's women's division was an improvement from previous years?
You can start this one off since you actually played in it.
That's an interesting question. I guess I'm not exactly sure what to compare it to, but I sort of feel like that's a good thing. If nothing really stood out from this year that I was like, oh, maybe this needs improvement or we could do this a little bit differently, then I think that means it ran really smoothly. There were a lot of things that went really well. I think the schedules were made very purposefully. So if you were supposed to be reffing a particular court, you were reffing a particular court. And if you were sitting, you were sitting. And it's just sort of set exactly where you need to be so people aren't looking around trying to find refs and that sort of thing. So I think that in all, I think it went really well. I don't know if I would say an improvement. I feel like last year went really smoothly too. But I guess the area I think that has improved, now that the refs have to take a test, I think a lot of people are a lot more aware of the rules, and I think that could grow even more. And I don't know if this is one of your next questions or later on, but I think having everybody on the team sort of be like a certified ref, or at least having gone through the quiz and taken it and knowing all the rules, I think that would be hugely helpful for the entire league for the entire elite family of dodgeball.
So you're saying like more internalizing the rule set?
Yeah, I think just having everyone be aware. So I feel like sometimes there are arguments about certain rules or certain calls that go a different way. But if more people on the court or more people watching, or even the players were more aware of all of the rules and how things were supposed to be, I think things would go even more smoothly and potentially less arguing over calls.
Yeah, for sure. And so Mark kind of talked about like he would have situations where he would, like at the captain's meeting, they would talk about a certain thing or a certain consequence. Like I think if you had a yellow card going into a match, like you couldn't play your seventh player, it still had to impact the team. There was something where it was like very important that the captain relay the information to his teammates. So you'd have situations where captains would just delegate that responsibility to somebody else while they were off, doing whatever they're doing, and that wouldn't be communicated. So like that lack of awareness or that lack of follow through or consistency, I think kind of screwed over some teams. So I agree. It's not even just a matter of can you take a test and pass it. It's are you aware of everything that's supposed to go on, all the changes? Because there were definitely instances where it impacted. I mean, I won't say like the overall tournament, but it kind of leads into the question I was going to ask, and that was Mark also said. You mentioned his recap that women's division knows how to handle their stuff, and what I wanted to ask was, did you guys see any of the negativity that was reflected in other divisions in this one? Like, was there any meltdowns or arguing or shouting matches or any like not cool moments, for lack of better words?
I think the women's division definitely. I think Mark hit it on the head. They know how to handle their shit. I was looking through, trying to refresh my memory and looking through the event page from Elite, and Lucas had posted the thing about the number one rule is taking your outs and tag whoever you think had integrity this weekend. And so many of the women and so many of just the women's teams were mentioned by different people. So that's 100% accurate. I didn't see any meltdowns. There was a few disappointing moments in my mind where refs, I feel like were kind of swayed by certain teams because, they're they're more well known. We had someone say to us I almost gave you a yellow card because they were pushing for it and they're well known. And to me, that's just, it's like, if you think we earned a yellow card, then absolutely we earned, or, our player earned a yellow card, but you shouldn't be, choosing to give us one because a team that, or a player that is well known across the country is the one that's asking you to do it. And that's not something that I ever saw happen in the women's division. So I think I understand why Mark is saying that.
Gotcha. Yeah, she definitely not be influenced by another player to deal out of disciplinary action for sure. How about you, Emily? Do you have any thoughts on that? From your perspective?
Yeah, I think mostly the women, and I don't want to say it's a respect sort of thing because I don't want to say the boys aren't being respectful, but at least from what I saw in our division, I think all the women are like, okay, you're going to make this call, you're going to make the call to the best of your ability, and I'm just going to go with your reffing and I'm going to take my out. And even if it was a close call and I think that you're not totally correct, I'm going to take my out anyway, and maybe I'll grumble under my breath over here. But I think generally we're just like, at least on the East Coast, I feel really happy to be playing dodgeball, and I feel really excited about it. It's something I love doing. I'm not there necessarily to like win or dominate, although that would be really awesome. But I just love playing, and I'm there for the love of the dodgeball, and I feel like that's something that's supported by most of the women too.
Awesome. Yeah, Mark said it was like a sense of entitlement that might have contributed to that kind of like poor behavior. And so I think when you said you're just happy to be there, it kind of just does away with that. And that alone probably eliminates a lot of negativity that just doesn't need to be there. Let's move on to Showdown real quick. Did you have a chance to see that, Emily? And did you play in Showdown?
I went back and forth going into that weekend whether I was going to play or not, since last year I played and I did so much better than I thought I was going to do, but I don't know if that was a fluke or I had, touched a lucky rabbit foot that day or something. I decided not to do it. I wanted to save my arm, my energy for the All-Star game. So I was more of a spectator. And admittedly, there were so many good matchups that I felt like I had ADHD. I was constantly looking around and trying to, oh, look at that game. Oh, look at that game. So I feel like I don't have a best idea of like individual games because I was just running all over the place. But there was so much talent this year. It was really incredible.
Yeah, it sounds like a good problem to have. Like, I don't know which match I want to watch. There's so many good ones taking place.
Right.
I know you said it's probably a blur, but are there any that still might stick out the most, or just like?
I think there's even a GIF of it at this point, but I think her name's Mary. I think she's from Canada. She made this amazing catch during the showdown, and I was just like, I was jumping up and down. It was insane.
So her name is Marcel.
No, okay.
It was really funny because I was reffing that court that Brianna was playing on, and we were calling Mary for the longest time and couldn't figure out why no one was, stepping up. And then it turned out that like Tim had scribbled it wrong and couldn't read his writing or whatnot, and it ended up being Marcel. If I'm saying that right, I could be saying that incorrectly.
That's funny. Yeah, she was really impressive, and I have actually also heard rumors that she is playing on the East Coast next year. I don't know if you've heard that, Amanda.
I have not. That is scary because she played with Precision,
right?
So yeah, Precision's already a strong team, so to add her to the roster is only going to make it stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Adding those good points, top of an already good team.
Yeah.
This is the clip where it starts off with like Brianna, because she's like going to gun somebody down, and then I think she just like catches it. Like, I don't know if she jumps, but it's that clip, right? I think it just came out like a couple days ago.
Yeah. Yeah, she's like, I don't even know if she jumps. I think she's just sort of like, she's ready for it. She opens her hand. She might even go on one foot, but she just like gives it a hug, and she's like, this is mine.
Yeah, and then she like stands like, what? Like, yeah, that's definitely what I just saw too. Well, how about you, Amanda? Since you were reffing, I mean, what can you recall in terms of like battles or? Oh
my gosh, there were so many games where going into it, I was like, I don't know who's going to come out of this on top. It could go either way. There was even a matchup between, I believe, Rachel Rodia and someone else on Pop that And I was like, I know they're going to be super honest because they always are, but I was like, I feel like this is going to be one of those games where it's constantly like who hit who first and having to reset. So I had someone else step in, and I ended up just sitting back and watching it, which was really enjoyable, but I can't even remember who it is now. But yeah, I feel like every time I heard a matchup, I was like, I don't want to say going into it, you sometimes are like, expecting someone to win, but obviously, especially as it's earlier, there's definitely some disparity in the players sometimes. But there was just so many good players in it that you just never knew who was going to come out on top. And there was actually a player I think she was from the North. I don't think she played women's. I don't know if she played open or she was just playing co-ed, but she upset quite a few people. I think she might have even been the one to maybe knock out Brianna. Maybe I'm remembering this wrong. But there's definitely a lot of talent in that pool, and I was not sad to have to sit back and just watch it this year.
Yeah, I wonder if this might be a weird question to ask, but so obviously, for men's showdown, it takes place over the course of each region or each round.
Mm-hmm.
If there's something more exciting about doing it all right then and there, because not to take away from Mike and Coed and all them, but they've had they're not tired. I imagine Ashley, by the time she got to the top, I would imagine she's pretty exhausted and just completely just battle crazed. Do you have a preference of how showdowns run between doing it all at once at nationals or versus breaking up into each individual round?
That would actually be really interesting to do it at the rounds. I think it would distribute women from all different regions a little bit more evenly. I do feel like it's sort of another West Coast dominated showdown kind of thing. So I think that would be a really interesting way to do it. And from last year, I do recall getting through showdown, and I believe it was the first day of nationals last year. My arm hurt so badly. I was just wanting someone to chop the whole thing off. It hurt. So in that sense, I feel like it's kind of a disadvantage for the rest of the weekend. My only fear is that there just wouldn't be enough women in all of the different regions to be able to pull something like that off. But I think it would be really great if we could.
Yeah, because I guess you can also study film and then kind of watch your opponent if you know who you're going to be up against. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, I agree with them in the sense that I think the number, they started at 32 this year, and then they decided to just allow anyone who wanted to play. And so the number of matches that, the top couple players must have gone through back to back. And I mean, it was best of 5. And most of the time it took more than 5 games because of resets or misses or whatnot. And just to think of the number of throws that you're making in that situation, like Emily said, it's just so much more work and, playtime that the men don't really have to think about because they did it in rounds 1 through 3.
Yeah, and they're looking at, I think, 2 matches tops, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I think with the way that the North and the South are right now, it'd be hard to do, or at least to have the numbers that they're probably looking for. But if we could get to a place where that was possible, it'd be pretty cool to see.
Awesome. Well, to say someday.
Yeah.
All the necessary movements that need to be made to get this going and growing has been done, and a huge shout out to the South and the North for trying to help make that happen. So let's go ahead and move to the last one, and that would be All Stars. Do you guys have a chance to watch or participate, Emily? You can start with you.
Yes, yeah, I did get a chance to participate. I was, voted onto the team, which was awesome and a lot of fun. It felt hard in a way to play with such different people that I've never played with before. It was really cool to play with them, but also felt a little bit disjointed. You know, you don't really get a lot of time to find your groove. But, you know, we didn't do as well as we wanted to do, but I'll take the third place. I think that next year the East Coast will come for the top 2 spots.
It seems to be like the theme for you that weekend was just getting thrown onto new teams. That seems that you're not quite familiar with just yet.
Yeah, that's very true. Just have to be fast at adapting.
Just looking at the lineup.
Yeah, one of my teammates who I have had a chance to play with, Jenny Hodge, unfortunately was injured, so she was not able to play with us on the All-Star team. So I know she would have loved to be there and maybe would have helped us gel a little bit more while we were playing.
So did you have to play without her? Like, did you only have 5 then, or were you able to get a sub?
We were able to get the alternate, so I think it's just the person who would be next in line, and I believe that was Ashley. Yeah.
Okay. I was looking at the one. I was like, Jennifer Hodge. There's something about her I was supposed to remember, but then I think the rest were. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know Tasha for sure, Michelle, Kim, and I think Samantha. Weren't they all on the Team USA for the WDA?
Yeah, and Michelle Redley, I think.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's that same question, like, which region do you think looked the best? But then if West won again, pretending they don't exist, how did the other regions do overall?
I think the West obviously played well, and they had such a strong team. I mean, you look at it, and you've got, 1, 2, 3, 4 girls that are on the USA team, one that's an alternate, and one that easily could be on that team any day. But so to see them take it all, not surprising. I think last year was a little bit of a surprise to see the North take it, so I was really looking at the North to see if they could do it again, because I'm almost positive that last year at Nationals, the North All-Star women took it. And they played well, but I think Tanya played with them last year, and I think because she played with the West, she wasn't part of the North, but then Ashley Cook was. It was very confusing where people were playing based off of their teams and where they live and all that. But the North still played well, but yeah, the West was just on that day.
Gotcha. I'm looking at the North lineup. I mean, we got. Wait, you said Ashley Cook didn't play for East. She played for North.
Right. That was the part that was confusing to me, because Ashley Cook plays with an East Coast team, but was, part of the North All-Stars. And same with, I guess, Marjan. She plays with a West Coast team, but was part of the North All-Stars. So I guess it's based off of where you're out of. I know this was a debate in the Dodgeball family group at one point. But yeah, they definitely had a strong team as well with Paige, and I'm trying to remember who else played with them.
Claire Curie, and then Sam, I'm going to butcher her name, Sakaricha.
Oh, yeah, and then Rebecca, too. Rebecca, Chapel?
Chapel.
Yeah.
Like Chapel and Snapple together, because that's what she told me to remember it by, and I guess it worked. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, at least she's from the North for sure, so like there's no debate there. But so they took second?
I believe so.
Awesome lineups. Well, I think that's all I have really. The only other thing I wanted to just mention or ask either of you is if you had like any like shout outs or just any like last minute but final thoughts just for the entire event from your perspectives, and we can go ahead and start with you, Emily.
I feel like I've gotten all the shout outs that I have in my head, all of the names. I feel like I've said a lot, but I think overall Dodgeball is moving in a really great direction. We're pushing really hard to get it out there and well known and publicized, and I think this is one of the ways that we're doing that, this podcast, so thank you for doing that. And my hope is that while we're all still playing, we get in there and get ourselves to the Olympics somehow.
I feel like we're making great strides. We, as in like the entire Dodgeball organization and community, and just like as you said, with all the stuff that's being made progress-wise with USA Dodgeball, and just seeing the presentation of the Elite Nationals was just really mind-blowing for me, and I think it's all just a matter of time. I feel like that's probably one of the biggest takeaways is it's all just a matter of time. Like, it's all going to get even better. How about you, Amanda?
Yeah, I was just thinking about how this is, I don't know, my fifth. How long has the league been around? Fourth, fifth, whatever it is. And I just feel like every year it gets better. Every year it feels like it runs smoother. It feels like the venues, the setup is better. Like, just every year it feels easier from a player standpoint. So I really appreciate that, because I know that that's not possible without Mark and Glenn and Vince and Tim and everyone else behind the scenes. So, well, it's really fun to come on here and talk. None of this would be possible without them. So can't say thanks to them enough. Yeah, I think we gave a lot of shout outs. My last shout out is just going to be to Nina. She is literally my favorite person to watch play, and I've only ever gotten to really watch her via, the internet. So I think I first watched her when she was on the USA team a couple years ago. And she was kind of my like person to lean on going through the ACL surgery, because she went through the same thing a couple years ago. And it's just coming back, and she is so awesome in person, as awesome as you could hope for. I got to watch her play, and she's another one where it's like, she'd be the last one in versus, three or four ladies, and would, make a huge catch. And it's just like, you got to know that's coming. So it was awesome to get to watch her play in person and get to meet her, because she's wonderful.
This is Nina Fiore?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Hopefully I said her name right.
I think so.
I've had a couple of interactions with her, even though I've known her for years, and she's definitely an awesome person. But yeah, you're right. I mean, obviously, huge shout out to the elite staff for doing everything they do, and it's definitely, sometimes I'm sure it feels like a thankless job. Now you get like the Facebook posts here and there, but like just the amount of work that they must have put into this. I mean, geez, it's got to be a lot. So
yeah.
Well, very cool. Well, speaking of shout outs, thank you guys so much for hopping on, and especially you and Amanda for working with me on my weird schedule and just trying to figure out work, but definitely did not want to not cover women's. So I definitely appreciate that. And Emily, thank you so much for hopping on as well. I'm definitely interested in getting to know you more. So hopefully once all these recaps and all this craziness stops, we can actually interview more people from the East Coast and just get out of the West. Like, I'm so rooted.
That would be great.
Cool. Well, we'll go ahead and end the segment there. Alrighty, so for this section, we're going to go ahead and just briefly discuss the pinch division, and here to help me do so is Sergio Leon. Sergio, thank you so much for hopping on, man, especially last minute. Let's just go ahead and give yourself a quick introduction, full name, team you played for, and I guess we'll go from there.
All right, sounds good. Hey, everyone. My name is Sergio Leon. I'm the captain of the new team EXO in the West region, and also filmed Open for the documentary in Nationals.
Awesome. Yeah, you were part of the film crew, right? Wearing that pretty cool-looking jersey that threw me off at first.
Yeah, you thought it was a new team, apparently.
Yeah, I was like, wait, what team is this? This is new. Well, cool, man. I think it's kind of ironic because I remember, you and I go off on pinch a lot. Well, usually you're trying to convince me that it's awesome and I'm trying to say otherwise. And then I'm finally getting like super excited for pinch, but then because I didn't coordinate my flight correctly, I ended up missing the entire thing. So,
well, didn't they change the schedule for that though? Or was it no sting that they changed?
think it was just noticing. I think I just didn't pay attention to the details. Typical, hashtag Gamma Damon moment. So. But
Jeez, that one.
Yeah, but well, why don't you just go ahead and again kind of clue me in. We'll start just from like a real quick high level. Like, how did the division go overall for you from your perspective and what you saw?
Well, from my perspective, coming from the West region where we have virtually no pinch at all, it was definitely a mind-blowing experience. I told myself that, nationals, especially in Minneapolis, and the North is known for pinch, and they put on a great show.
But they did not disappoint then.
It did not disappoint at all. I mean, every hit, every miss, it just had that visceral feeling, and just sitting by watching, roaming between teams, it was definitely a great show to watch.
Yeah, that's almost exactly what Mark was saying. It's like every hit was like like it just had that that pure, raw, brutal violence that I guess some people like to see. And when you mentioned, I think what finally pushed me over the edge of like, man, I can't wait to see this myself, was when you said that we are in the pinching heartland. Like, this is where the best of the best contend on like a weekly basis. And so I'm just gonna say one more time, I'm totally bummed I missed out on it. But was there any teams that you stuck with the most, or you just kind of like just go wherever you could?
Well, I followed Task Force for Open when filming, and yeah, I was filming them from the round robin to the eliminations the next day.
Gotcha. So did you get to see Task Force play pinch at all, though?
I got to see them play pinch. I wasn't filming, so I was solely just there as a spectator watching them play. I roamed between, with pinch, I roamed between Titan, Final Justice, Task Force, and Grand Rapids Dynasty.
Awesome. Very cool. So kind of sticking with Task Force real quick, did their dynamic change when they converted from 8.5 to pinch?
From my perspective, it looked like they were doing better in pinch. Again, probably because it's their primary style.
Right. Very cool. What other teams did you notice that stood out the most?
For pinch, I would say Rise Brutality. Having Kenny Cox, who is like one of two players that we have out here in the West that play pinch, watching Kenny just go off every time is definitely a joy to see.
Oh, so he played with Rise?
Yeah, he was on Rise for pinch.
Oh, wow. Okay. Again, no diss on Rise, but when you said Rise stood out to you, I was like, how? Because I might get a message from Serge, but like I just didn't see them as like a contending pinch team. But you throw Kenny on there, and then like any team is a contending pinch team, I would think. Would you agree on when you got to see Kenny?
Oh yeah, like when I saw Rise there, I didn't think they were going to do pinch, but then when I saw Kenny suit up for them, I was like, okay, they're suited, they're ready to go.
They're going to play. Did Kenny do anything? I don't want to say crazy because that's Kenny after talking to him and seeing him, but did he do anything that you noticed, or was he just regular Kenny Cox murdering people?
He was definitely murdering people. I think the one thing that kind of blew my mind while watching Kenny is actually watching him play pinch. I mean, I know like he's known for it, but never actually having seen it. His balls just kept whipping every time. Like he just has insane speed, and he was just taking out people left and right.
Yeah, I mean, I faced off against him across the court. Like, that's all I've seen, and that was 5 years ago. So, like, I imagine he's gotten better since then, and probably stronger and faster and scarier. So, oh man,
he ages like wine. his skills only sharpen over time.
I'm so bummed I missed out. How did the rest of Rise look? Because I know Serge is known for pinching, so like I know that he gets way more offensive than what we're used to with 8.5 regular. Any takeaways from him or the other teammates?
From my perspective, Serge looked like he was their second option as far as pinch goes. But as far as Rise as a whole, they stuck to their same strategy, just picking people out apart. going through Kenny on the offensive end, and sometimes Serge if people were just too focused on Kenny. So that definitely opened up more opportunities for Serge.
Gotcha. And looking at the bracket, I mean, it looked like they went pretty far, unless I'm mistaken. Because looking at, looks like they beat Task Force, which, wow. I imagine that's no small feat.
That was definitely an upset in my eyes.
Did you happen to catch that game?
I caught the last game when I think it was, 2 or 1-1?
Yeah, it's so hard to see because the writing's so small, but I want to say that those are both ones.
Yeah. Like, I missed their first game, and apparently I might be wrong, but I think Rise took the second and the third from them.
Now, when they won that final game, was it pretty decisive, or did it look like it could have gone to either team?
It's like 2 weeks after the fact, but I remember it was pretty close.
Gotcha. Well, let's move on to the team I was really looking forward to watching. Not to diss anybody else, but Panch, just kidding, Titan, or however, whichever it was. Unfortunately, they didn't have Mike McGee, but how did they look aside from that? Did they look like they were there to play Pinch? Because it looks like they went really far as well.
I had them going as like a dark horse, and they did not disappoint. They were definitely a team. Like, out of all the teams, like, I roamed in between. I was definitely looking to run to wherever court they were on, and they were pretty dominant against any and all opposition that I saw.
Yeah, it's really cool that the West Coast can still represent, especially, again, as we said, in the pinching heartland. So I'm just there's a lot of streaming videos I gotta watch just so I can understand, at least get a sense of what took place. But what other teams did you notice when you're going back and forth and that you're just like, oh, this is a great matchup, or these guys look great, that you can remember?
Definitely Grand Rapids Dynasty, just because, coming out from the West, I wanted to see how dominant are these guys. Like, are these guys just winning on a fluke, or are they just that good? And they pretty much set the standard, as far as I can remember. They set the standard for pinch that day and pretty much lived up to their name, Dynasty. Dynasty and Final Justice.
Yeah, so going back to Panch and or Titan, they took third, so they clearly went pretty far. And then what I wish I really saw too was Notorious, because they look like they just were swinging in 8.5 Open. So I was really curious to see like what would they look like playing pinch, playing what I'm assuming is their division. Did you get to watch any of their matches at all? Oh
yeah, I mean, they definitely. My impression of them, they just came out swinging. I felt like pinch was more their style, and they look like a team of linebackers and fullbacks. So they were physically intimidating, physically imposing, and just with the visceral style of pinch, it just felt more like it was in their personal element.
It's their realm.
It's their realm.
That's awesome. So
they took a pinch division in one of the rounds in the North. I think round 1.
I think it was definitely one there. It was either 1 or 2, and I remember like hearing not like maybe it was a surprise or a shock or an upset because I think people were expecting Kraken to win, or they did something. They just kind of came out of nowhere, and so like their name has definitely been mentioned a few times. So I was actually happy to see them in person, see what they look like. It was pretty cool to have that realization. But so you also mentioned Final Justice a few times. So what did you see with that team?
Well, with that team, I'm not sure who the captain is, but I'm pretty certain it may be wrong, but it may be Rebecca Chappell. Just the fact that she was able to coordinate the plays in between and coordinate their offense, and also she can pinch. I didn't expect to see her pinch, but then again, like she she really stood out to me as far as like not really backing down from anyone.
That's awesome. So she's coordinating the plays, leading the team, just ripping balls as hard as anybody else.
Yeah, like she definitely, grabbed my attention only because I was just thinking like, wow, I didn't know she played pinch. I knew she was from that area, and she just stood out to me as far as one of the players to watch in that division.
What a badass. That's so cool. I knew she played pinch. What's up?
Oh, no, she's a floor general, and she definitely earned her stripes as far as I'm concerned.
For sure. Well, generals wear stars, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, I knew she played pinch, and that's another thing I was excited to see because I want to see her play as well. And then, do you know if Paige played?
If she did, I probably missed it.
I suppose I could just ask her. I probably will, but I know that she plays pinch as well. And so, part of these recaps for me have been really, really awesome because I've been able to actually remember or at least recognize names. And then I also like kind of have an idea of who plays what and where they stand in each division. So, man, again, I'm so bummed I missed out. But let's kind of move toward any plays. Like, were there any plays that you noticed that were just, I guess, so awesome that you can talk about them 2 weeks later? For example, and I hope I'm not embarrassing this guy if he's listening, but the guy from Notorious who got a full thrown pinch ball into the.
Oh, yeah, I remember that hit. Sadly, I don't remember what match it was, but I remember that hit, and I remember thinking, like, as a spectator, I felt that. That was one of the few hits that I felt, and I was just. I was there to see it. I just can't remember what team that was.
Yeah,
I felt for the guy.
I won't laugh at anybody's misery, but where it gets hilarious for me though is like he was caught back in when he was still on the ground, writhing in pain, and then he ended up catching a ball there again. It's like this poor guy.
That catch wasn't worth it at that point. He wheelbarreled himself back in. That I remember. He wheelbarreled himself back in. And I could just see the pain in his eyes where he made that catch. And, yeah, I was just like, dude, I fell for you, bud. Sorry.
Well, it's not even like a comedic thing. It's just like, you poor man. Well, aside from that, because, I mean, this is probably the second time it's been brought up, but any other plays that you noticed, like amazing catches or just exchanges that you can recall?
During the finals between Grand Rapids Dynasty and Notorious, I think it was a 3-on-1 situation. It might have been 4-on-1, but I remember Kevin Bailey being one of the last players in and him just taking out the opposing team. I think he made a catch in that sequence, but all I can remember is thinking like, okay, they pretty much have this kid dead to rights. And I think he's like 20, 21?
I think so. He's forever like 18 looking, but I think he's like 22, 21 tops.
I just remember thinking like, man, Notorious might be able to pull an upset and take a medal off of them in nationals, because the last pinch team that won nationals was Doom. And I just remember thinking, man, they have this kid dead to rights. They're going to just light him up, and his composure as well as his skill was one of the main reasons that they pulled it out in that situation.
Yeah, so that was another person that I wanted to watch too. Like it wasn't even just watching the desire to watch violence. It was the desire to watch these people that I got to know over the course of these last like 5 or 6 months and just see them in their element. And I'm so bummed to miss out. And like even Mark said, it's time to put Kevin out to stud, because of, I guess, whatever he did was just phenomenal. And it kind of aligns with what you're describing. Like he was by himself and he just had this amazing composure and body control, and he was able to just basically take out an entire team by himself and help secure that victory. So that's incredible. I mean, I don't care what division you're playing, whether it's foam, no sting, pinch, 8.5, to be able to do that under those kind of odds and that pressure and come out ahead is incredible. It kind of reminds me of when Eric Stone he did the same thing. Like, he took out Dynasty, ironically, by himself. And you think, like you said, oh, this team has this person dead to rights, but then they just I don't know what they do. They go to like this higher plane of existence and playing, and they just they say no. They shut it down. Like, you can't ever write anybody off anymore. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I call that, and I'm pretty sure Kenny will love this reference. I call it ultra instinct. When you get to that state of mind where it's not even about thinking, you're just going with the flow and just letting your body and muscle memory take over.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing. There's many words for it. I think, isn't ultra instinct like a Dragon Ball Z reference?
Yeah.
I'm catching on with the youths. I'm learning. I think just going back and speaking of like Dynasty and all the victories that they've had, like this is their fourth win now. That's incredible.
Yeah, fourth, right?
Yep, that was their fourth. I pulled up the Tribune article and was just kind of looking over some of the highlights here, and it mentions, and I don't know if you can maybe speak to this, but here Tyler says, or the Tribune says, the West deserves some credit for strong showings from Panch, who finished third in a heartbreaker against Dynasty. Do you by any chance remember what that heartbreaker might have been? Did you have a chance to see that?
I think that one, if I remember correctly, there was a controversial call on Billy that, I mean, I didn't get a clear look at it. All I remember thinking was just that definitely caused a minor shift. But going back to what we said earlier, the game isn't over. You can't really count anyone out. And even a minor shift, they just couldn't get some of that momentum back.
Right. Yeah, I think so that might have been what Mark might have been alluding to when he said that, there were some calls that weren't the best or were very questionable, and they ended up just kind of changing the momentum of the outcome, which sucks. But like, you kind of have to like not let that completely hinder the rest of your performance. But it's easy to say from the outside, right? Like, I wasn't there, so.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely a minor shift, but if looking back, if they just kind of forgot about that, so to speak, like had a short-term memory about it, they could have definitely secured a higher seeding or even made it to the finals. But it was pretty much a neck-and-neck match in that regard. That I do remember.
Very cool. Just like looking at the bracket here. I wonder why. So, I mean, the Tribune labels them as Panch, but then it's Titan, but then like it's just. I'm really trying not to like upset anybody, but like I'm just looking through Panch's run. I mean, looks like they took out Corruption, took out Riot, beat Final Justice, even okay, and then they lost to Notorious, but then they
and then they lost to Dynasty, I believe.
Right.
Yeah, Dynasty.
Yep.
I mean, they lost to. If you look at it, they lost to two teams who made it to the finals. So that pretty much showcased that they really put on for the West, as far as we're concerned.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of getting at. Is like they definitely helped represent the West very well. And then with Rise taking fifth, I mean, fourth went to Final Justice. So I mean, just because the West Coast isn't as pinch dominant as the North is, it's still cool seeing that they still represent. It's just a testament to the West talent. But definitely looks like this was like you said, like this is the North's. This is where they belong. Like this is their thing. So I wonder what next year's going to be like, and hopefully I'll actually schedule my flights the right way so I can finally see them. Trying to see if there's anything. Did you happen to catch any Tigers games or Kraken by any chance?
I think I may have caught in round robin Tigers against what was it? Final Justice. I don't remember seeing any Kraken games though.
No, it's a bummer.
But I do remember seeing Tigers. I think they were playing Final Justice and round robin.
And how did Tigers look?
I've never well, we didn't get to play them in Coed. I didn't get to see them in Open because they didn't play Task Force. But it looks like Final Justice were as far as I'm concerned, they were in a league of their own. Even though the matches were pretty close as far as closing them out, they just couldn't close out against Final Justice.
Yeah, the reason I bring that up is because I know Tim Wells is a very avid pinch player, and so I was, again, not to call anybody out or have the conversation go that way, but I'm looking at Tigers look like they tied for 13th, so I was expecting maybe a little bit higher of a placement, but then again, this is North Territory, so naturally they're going to be the ones that are taking the top half of the standings here. But I think that's all I have. I was going to ask, what region do you feel is the most dominant? I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I would say North was probably the most dominant next to West.
As far as pinch goes, yeah, the North. It kind of sounds redundant in saying it, but I left Minneapolis realizing that this is their bread and butter for a reason. I mean, if you look at all the placements, if you take pinch out of it, all the top 5 teams, top 8 teams were all North.
Yeah, so you have Dynasty, Notorious, Panch, Final Justice, Rise, Kraken, Task Force, Boosh. So just take out Panch, take out Rise, and you got Riot for 9th, Havoc, but then Corruption. So yeah, I would definitely agree. Don't suppose you saw any of the Outsiders games by chance? Speaking of other regions.
The Outsiders, I think I saw one of their games. I know for them it's not really their bread and butter, but there were several matches where they held their own. And I think it's just the pace of it, the pace of the matchups in pinch, because it's really quick. Those balls are flying a lot faster. People are, they're playing with more of a visceral intensity that if they just familiarize themselves in pinch, they could have done a little better. Their chemistry was really what only saved them. But yeah, you could tell they were a little bit outside their element as far as pinch goes.
Yeah, so that's kind of why I brought them up too, because if there's one thing I've learned about them, it's that if they liked pinch, if they enjoy playing, then they're going to go home and practice and figure out how they can get better at it so they can come back next year and continue to prove that, the South is just as strong as the other regions. So kind of cool hearing that they were able to stand their own, though, because if I may be so bold, this might have been their first real exposure to pinch as the Outsiders. I'm not sure if they played last year. I can probably check with Vaughn on that one. But I guess overall, is there a favorite matchup that you had, or a favorite battle between two teams?
Outside of the final between Notorious and Grand Rapids,
right,
it was definitely Panch and Final Justice, just because it was neck and neck all the way to the very end. And out of all the pinch matchups, that one was more like a shootout. That one, in my opinion, if I had to say outside of the championship, what would I describe pinch as, or the best representation of it as far as quickness, pace, visceral intensity, it was definitely that matchup for sure.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, I definitely have a lot of footage to watch. So in my copious amounts of free time, I'm going to have to have me a dog and just kind of, like I said, just it obviously not going to be it's not going to do justice as being there in person and hearing those hits and seeing the reactions and feeling that vibe. But just being able to watch intense dodgeball like that is always fun. So I think that's all I got. This is probably an answer I already know, but I'm just going to go ahead and ask it again. And that is, did this live up to your expectations? I mean, we talked about this again in between Facebook messaging and when I had the in-person interview. I mean, are you a satisfied spectator, for lack of better words?
Absolutely. Definitely exceeded my expectation. As far as anyone who wanted to get better at pinch, just practice, take next year, go to a round out in the north and really just expose yourself to that level of competition so you know what you're up against versus going into nationals and facing everyone there your first time and dealing with the elements of pinch.
For sure. Expose yourself to the elements, embrace the bruises, because I'm sure there's going to be plenty. And
there were bruises. There were definitely every hit, even those misses. I mean, those sounded very visceral, man.
Visceral is such a good word to describe pinch. Even from my limited perspective, like if I had some choice words, violence, visceral, and just brutality, like that's how I would describe it. So very cool. Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for hopping on last minute. I know that, one of those like last minute, hey, can you hop on real quick and talk pinch, 2 weeks after the fact, but after going through the recaps and putting some of the other panels together, I really didn't want to just completely skip pinch. So I will definitely work harder to make it have its due, because there's a lot that took place, I'm sure, that we just barely even touched the surface of. But that all being said, dude, thank you so much again, and we'll go ahead and just end this segment here.
Alrighty, well, with such an epic event taking place and with so much to cover, I can only say with confidence that we barely scratched the surface between all the divisions, all the drama, all the excitement, and everything that comes with a 3-day elite national tournament. This broken up format, from pre-cap to in-game interviews to broken up panels, was an attempt to take it all down, and I absolutely could not have done this without the help of Mark Acomb, Anna Wynn, Lucas Boyle, Bill Fischer, Ryan Haley, Amanda Ashley,
Emily Hotz,
and
Sergio Leon.
There's just no way. There's just no way I would have done this. And guys, thank you so much for hopping on and helping me make this happen and for coordinating with me, because my studio time is very limited. So the fact that you guys were able to bear with me is just nothing short of amazing. And I thank you very profoundly for doing so. For those of you listening, thank you for doing so. And if you liked any aspect of this format, please feel free to let me know. As I've said in previous closings, I'm definitely working with various formats to see what is the best way to cover this sport that we all love. So I welcome any feedback that you guys are willing to provide anytime. And last but not least, thank you again to everyone that has supported this podcast, whether it was through your input, your comments, your feedback, your confession of just listening. It's very, very much appreciated and definitely motivates me to continue. So I appreciate that. And before I get all mushy, I'm going to go ahead and just end it with that. So have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next time. All the divisions, all the drama, all the excitement, all the come on. You're gonna break down in hour 4. You've gone this far.